Welcome to the 67th episode of the Triple Takeover Toycast, a fortnightly podcast all about Transformers and other vintage toy lines. But tonight we're actually talking comics. My name is Sixo, but more on that later, because as ever, I'm joined by my two absolutely stunning co-hosts. First up, we've got the man himself, Liam from Toybox Soapbox.
What ho?
What ho indeed.
I need to pick you up on something you said there. You said as ever.
As
Is
ever.
It as ever now?
Well, it's not quite as ever, is it? Because we've also got...
G2.
Yeah, it's G2, baby. Triple Takeover G2.
The next generation.
Exactly, the next generation. We're all here in our 90s neon camo. We've got J-Swags in the house.
Hello, gents. Yes, good to see you again. This is most exciting. Looking forward to this one.
Yeah?
Yes, very much.
Have you done the required reading?
I have.
Wait, were you not looking forward to the other ones?
Well, there was a transition period there, so now we're in a groove, aren't we?
Trepidation areas.
An Autobot groove. Let's do that.
There we go. An Autobot groove. That's nice. Yeah, got to keep it trademark appropriate.
On topic. Yes.
Indeed. I'm well up for this one. I got to tell you, I've been buzzing about this comic. Absolutely buzzing. Spoiler alert. But I love it so far. And there is so much that I want to say. I've already written about 6 articles about it.
What a shot. Was that in 2 days?
Yeah.
Exactly.
That was 2 days worth of material, yeah.
Worth pointing out that there will be spoilers in this podcast.
100%.
Yeah. It's a real page turner. That was the main thing. And there was bits that were like, you can tell Kirkman's behind this. It's not the Transformers of my youth at all.
It's not your father's Autobot. That's fair to say, is it?
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
But it feels like it is.
Yeah. But we'll get to all of that in time. Before we get to that, we should mention that we do have a sponsor for the evening. That is tfsource.com. Do check them out for your Transformers and third-party needs, and we'll do a bit of a longer segment on them in the middle of the pod.
Oh, no. We're at a weird bit now.
Yeah, this is a weird one now, because normally we've got Maz do the Patreon. Shall I just do the Patreon tonight?
Wait. Shall we try and do it in Maz's voice? Oh, and if that's not enough for you,
you're right.
I hope you choke. Oh.
This is the bit where we've got to imitate Maz, indeed, and pretend that he's here.
He sat there with his hands over his head and going, I don't even sound like that. That voice he does when he's like
that. He does do that, doesn't he? Bless him. But so we've also got a bit of a Patreon. It's so weird not just turning this to someone else and be like, oh, there you go. But yeah, we do have a bit of a Patreon. So you can check us out at patreon.com/triple takeover. And on there, we have now 5 glorious tiers. And there's absolutely tons of stuff on there. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that our top tier is something very special because it has mini-series in it. And these are like regular topics that we talk about, such as IDW's More Than Meets the Eye, or previously we've been doing the Unicron trilogy up until now. We do Liam's Tapman, where he finds some vintage thing in a tub somewhere and talks about it for half an hour or whatever.
Tapman forever.
Indeed, yes, yeah. Not Twatman, is it? We've established that previously.
Yeah, Tatmania. We're not doing Twatman and Robin, Raz.
No,
definitely not.
That's the spin-off podcast. No.
Yeah. That's a personal podcast, Liam.
Yeah, but we are going to have some new miniseries on the way as well. Current thinking is actually 2 new miniseries, but I will tell you what one of those is going to be tonight, and it will be about Skybound and the Energon Universe, which is what we're here to obviously talk about in this episode. But we are going to spin off into a regular ongoing mini-series that you can get as part of our Gold Box Classics tier on a monthly basis. And, it'll be one of the mini-series that we're doing. So although we're going to do issues 1 and 2 of the Transformers tonight, from issue 3, 4 onwards, you'll be able to get it on our Patreon, basically, is the thing. So you get the first bit for free. The rest of it you can get as a patron. So, but there are also other tiers as well. You can just sign up as an apologetic ramp and support us for £1 a month, or a Man in Pig, where you get to listen to early access on our regular episodes up to a week early, which is really, really good. Or an Inner Beast, where you can get on our Discord, where it is absolutely banging at the moment, fair to say. Our Discord's been jumping this last couple of days, hasn't it?
It was great last night. Amazing. Couldn't keep up. Jump between channels.
Yeah, indeed. The Skybound discussion on there has been quite something, actually.
Full of beans.
So, I'll be honest. I was avoiding that until this chat because I wanted to stay fresh. So I did drop in after I'd kind of caught up with everything. But I wanted to talk to you guys first, and I'm going to go through it later.
Yeah, people are being really respectful actually with the old spoiler tags and stuff, which is nice. But it is a spoiler chat on the Discord. But still, I like the fact that people are still taking the time to use spoiler tags and stuff. It's really, really nice.
It's good. It's good and it's active. The Rise of the Beast chat still active as well.
Well, someone, brought that back from the grave today, didn't they, Liam? So
I just saw it and I clicked on it and I thought you'd posted like recently. I didn't realise until I read your thing after that you'd posted 2 months ago.
That was
months.
great. Yeah, it was 2 months ago.
2 months.
It's like, why is this channel come alive?
The channel has risen from the dead. There we go.
Oh, altered rises of the beasts.
My God. But yeah, you can also sign up as a Sixo's Butler, where you get access to fortnightly minisodes as well. And you can indeed commission minisodes on a range of weird and wonderful topics. We've just had recently a Fortress Maximus minisode going live as part of our focus on 1987 Transformers content recently. So plenty of good stuff there. You can check it all out at www.patreon.com/Triple Takeover.
Perfect. Look at that.
Yeah, seamless.
Who was Maz?
That was a good job. I still miss you, Maz, but Sixo, you did a good job there.
Thanks, man.
I just want to say we had a message on the Instagram just about this,
did we?
The new G2 Triple Takeover. Yeah, I saw it then. I wasn't sure whether to read it out because it breaks my heart a little bit. But Barry from Barry in Wales, a lovely small town,
What?
Well, Barry, home of Barry Town, the football team that basically just wins the Welsh League every year.
Oh, that's where you lost us.
Yeah.
The League of Wales champions. Them.
That wasn't where he lost me.
Yeah. But anyway, Barry said, "I listened to your most recent episode, and I was good to hear at the departure of Maz. Sleep well, sweet prince." But he's like, "Is there any Maz tribute merch you can buy?" I was like, "There isn't. I'm afraid. But you can, lots of other things on our Redbubble you can buy, everything, salutes Maz. His history is told through this Redbubble."
We could do Maz tribute merch. The thing is, he won't let us whack his photo on anything, will he? It'd be brilliant.
Yeah, there's going to be commission there, isn't there?
We need to have a T-shirt that says "Maz hoped I choked" or something.
Right.
His classic phrases.
Yeah.
Maz's golden balls. Again, he's like listening now, going, "What?"
I got called to see you next Tuesday by Maz, and all I've got to show for it is this lousy T-shirt or something like that. I don't know.
This is how we get him back because he's going to be so annoyed listening to this. He's
Yeah,
like, right, I've got to come back, rein these guys in.
Maz merch. Yeah.
It could just be Diaclone forever. That's all he needs.
That would work.
Forever. Yeah. There you go.
Forever. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
Done.
That would do it.
But yeah, if you want to buy some Maz merch,
Some Maz. Buy a Maz.
that we don't have. But yeah, head over to rebel.com/people/Triple Takeover. Oh, for God's sake, every time, was it rebel.com/people/Triple Takeover? Oh, /explore.
Explore.
Yes. Explore. There we go.
That was seamless, mate. Where's your post-it?
It's because I got a new monitor, haven't I? So I've moved stuff around.
Right.
Now I've lost the
Too
post-it.
big. The monitor's too big. It's way on the far end.
It's got a full-size desk now. That's the thing. So.
That's
got a
no
grown-up
longer the
desk.
child-sized desk.
Yeah, indeed.
Exactly.
Oh, it's worked wonders on my elbows. I'm telling you, man. My posture is so much better.
That's good. And you've had a haircut, I see.
Yeah. I was getting a bit Revenge of the Sith, Anakin Skywalker. It was getting long. I was actually quite liking it, but ends up a bit mullety. So it's finally gone. My pre-Christmas haircut. There we go.
Nice.
I think mullets are in nowadays, aren't they? I think that's cool again. I don't know.
It is.
I could be wrong.
But it only lasts for like a week, doesn't it? Like I still see people with top knots on, and I'm like, oh, you're gonna regret that in a few years.
Mullets, top knots, 80s, all coming back.
Are you a samurai?
Yeah, exactly. Or a footballer.
Yeah. Well, let's get on to the main portion of the pod for tonight then, which is about Skybound's Energon Universe. And I should stress that actually, I know they said that we were going to be talking about Transformers. It's Transformers, isn't it? Not the Transformers, this comic. I think it's just Transformers.
Still annoys me.
They dropped the.
So it is. Oh, yeah, they did, didn't they? That's right.
But yeah, this is a thing now, that the trademark nonsense where it's now just Transformers.
Transformers, yeah. I do miss the days of the Transformers, yeah. I miss that.
So I have the second printing, so it's a
variant cover,
yeah, variant cover.
Lovely. Some of the covers on these issues are
this one with Optimus Prime kneeling down. It's the main one, but it's one of my favorite Transformers covers ever because it's just cool, and it's nice to see Optimus Prime being cool. Again, doing Optimus Prime looking things.
I really like that cover. It's beautiful. It's really dynamic.
Daniel Warren Johnson, man, his stuff, his way of drawing Transformers just blows my mind. Honestly, like it's like nothing I've sort of really seen before from the franchise.
But it feels like it is. Like it looks like nothing you've seen, but it feels nostalgic but new at the same time. It's that perfect mix. Like we've seen other stuff before, and you're like, oh, that's fantastic because it looks just like the Marvel comic. Whereas I look at this and I'm like, it doesn't look like the Marvel comic, but it makes me feel like the Marvel comic.
100%.
That's a good way to describe it.
You know what I mean? It evokes it with the colours and the style. And I was talking about like the page quality's got that old early 2000s kind of feel to it. Like the way the colours are, they're quite not muted, but you know what I mean? They're not super overly bright and glossy. It's really nicely done.
He talked a little bit, and I'm sure we'll refer to this a few times, but he talked a little bit on his sort of director's commentary, as he calls it, director's commentary, like a behind the scenes of how the first issue was made and all of that. And he talked, he mentioned Jeff Senior, by name and looked at a couple of bits of his artwork. It's there in the influence, and he name checked Jeff Senior, and it's, I'm not alone in this fandom of saying that Jeff Senior is one of my all-time favorite Transformers artists. I mean, that's no great surprise. Having grown up with that.
He's my favorite artist. The reason I went to TFN and met him, and he's the reason that I went into animation and went to art school. The inspiration. Is that right? Yeah, it totally was. And I remember chatting to him about it. Lovely guy. And I don't really get kind of hero worship type thing, but just seeing him. And I loved as well within the first issue at the end, there's a bit from Daniel talking about, his inspiration, and very modest as well when he talks about like doing justice to the original comic and what he was trying to do. And he kind of worded it really well, where he was talking about drawing these kind of Optimus Prime's face, but still trying to get the emotion into it, and how he found that so hard when he was younger. And that is something that throughout the comic has always been, for me, whether it kind of makes or breaks a comic, because it can just make it just very one-dimensional otherwise.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's a very Jeff Senior thing. Like I always remember there's a particular bit from the original Marvel comic where Prime goes back to Cybertron for the first time, since having crash landed on Earth. And he's walking around and he discovers Iacon and sees that it's been, left desolate, basically. It's a wasteland now. And of course, that was his home city. And there's just a panel of him, shouting into the void, as it were. And his eyes are basically solid circles, just plates. And the way Jeff Senior draws it, I can picture it literally now, totally. Sat here. And it's so expressive. And as you say, just with that one part of the face, even though most of his face is covered, it's really, really good.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. Even there's a lovely little kind of sketch of a G1 Optimus Prime at the end of the comic, just as part of that bit from Daniel, telling the story of losing the fists from his toy, which is just like that happened to all of us, didn't it? But
I was going to say,
my heart bled when he was talking about that. Lost
relatable
forever.
Stuff, isn't it? Yeah,
it is. Yeah. That's an incomplete G1 Prime.
I hope in the comic at some point he pulls his fists out of his chest, like we all used to store them in there.
Yeah,
that would be funny. Yeah,
just opens it up and there's just two little butler gloves in there.
Yeah. But it's worth just mentioning before we kind of get into these issues specifically that we are going to be chatting about the wider Energon Universe, as Skybound are calling it as well. And that's it's a new shared universe, and shared universes are kind of all the thing in movies nowadays. But of course, comics really have been doing this for donkey's years, haven't they? It's not a new thing, but it sort of feels new with the way that Skybound are approaching it, I think. And so whilst the focus is going to be on Transformers predominantly,
it's from the ground up. I think
exactly. And the references are getting peppered in thick and fast. I mean, issue 2, which landed, literally today for us as we're having this chat, there's stuff in there which sets up what's coming next and things like that. So it's fair to say that from this point on, spoilers abound, Skybound. So do be prepared for that, because okay.
You've morphed into me. We need Maz to rein you in. What's happening?
we need Maz to come back and just call us all a bunch of or whatever, don't we?
I'm waiting for Jason to make some
I'm too nice, I'm just enjoying the show right now.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's good. But yeah, so there are going to be spoilers, but also we are going to refer to Void Rivals, which is the kind of sister comic. If you've not read that as well, I would wholeheartedly recommend it because I think it's good in its own right, even outside of the sort of Transformers references. And we may well end up referring to G.I. Joe and things as well as we go, and whatever else kind of becomes part of this universe as we get into it.
What do you think of the name Energon Universe?
It's okay.
I don't know.
It's a bit nondescript.
Yeah, it just feels...
It's combining two toy lines, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
So
I just think it feels almost a bit too understated. It feels a bit half-hearted. It's almost like a temporary name that just stuck. It's kind of how it feels.
It's weird as well because it puts Transformers very much at the forefront.
I was about to say that.
Yeah.
Because does it have a reference to G.I. Joe? I'll be honest, I don't know much about G.I. Joe, so I doubt it.
So it's just a Transformers thing, and unless it's going to come up in Void Rivals and whatever else they do as well, I don't know. It's a strange one. I mean, I guess ultimately it seems like this universe is being built around Transformers. I think you can kind of feel that, but let's see how it goes. But yeah, I do agree with you. It's the position of the two franchises now, though, isn't it? It's very much Transformers is the big one, and G.I. Joe feels like an ever-shrinking, niche, more and more niche profit, isn't it? Yeah, it's true, actually. It is true. And, spoilers for Rise of the Beast, for those that haven't seen that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we've got G.I. Joe Transformers crossover toys happening right now. We've got Rise of the Beast, which, of course, references G.I. Joe. And now you've got this comic universe. It's a weird old time where those properties are aligning in that way that is, I think, pure happenstance. I don't think that's, because I really do. I think that's just coincidence.
I was going to say the opposite. I was going to say it feels like this now is part of a concerted effort to merge them together more. Whereas before they felt like they were crossing over. I feel like now because we had the IDW stuff where they sort of merged them together, and then you've got the movie. And I feel like now, rather than it just being like a shared universe as such, it's more of going to be a permanent thing going forward, where they're going to gradually become crossover more and more. And it's going to be still two brands, but less distinct than they are. It's going to be more. Yeah. You'll see way more Transformers that come with like a little minifigure here or more references.
Which I'm up for.
Just because G.I. Joe doesn't. It just seems like a collector brand now, whereas Transformers still is everywhere. And I feel like that's their way. They figured out now, like each time they relaunch G.I. Joe, it never lands, does it?
It doesn't land.
Never hits anymore.
It can't get the traction now. Yeah,
so
not
I
in
feel
the same way.
The only avenue for it is almost as bad as it is to say for G.I. Joe fans. But I'm a G.I. Joe fan as well. But it feels almost like this is going to be a sub brand of Transformers to some extent. Maybe?
I see what you're saying. I suppose the only reason I think that it is a bit coincidental is that I sort of know that the reference in Rise of the Beast didn't necessarily come from Hasbro. That was a Paramount thing. That was Paramount, if anything, pushing. We've got these film rights. We'll want to do something more with that. Let's kind of link it. So that wasn't a Hasbro edict. So that's what makes me think that I'm not sure this is kind of a joined up, concerted effort to kind of align all these properties, but maybe someone somewhere is kind of suggesting it or whatever. I don't know, but
because it came from IDW, didn't it? That's IDW were told to merge these brands as well, and then obviously when Skybound have taken this, they've been told by Hasbro, this is a universe, this is a shared universe. You have to do these. They have to cross over. So it feels like this where we're going now. More like I wouldn't be surprised if, like after Earthspark, the next Transformers cartoon features the more G.I. Joe references. Like rather than just something really obscure, there'll be a character turns up, or one of them turns into a vehicle, and it just becomes more and more like that, and more common.
Maybe so.
There's always been overlap within Transformers and the G.I. Joe universe throughout. I've got like collected versions back in the day and stuff like that, and they were okay. But there was like G.I. Joe using Megatron as a tank, and kind of deprogramming them and stuff like that. But they always felt a bit vacuous. I didn't really enjoy them because they just were one-offs and weren't that much depth to them. For me, I felt Energon Universe and what they're doing here is that Transformers is the kind of core part, and then they're launching G.I. Joe out of that as well.
Seems like that.
Hopefully build out more traction within another fandom and things like that. And maybe a bit of a kind of inspired by MCU and what they did with the universe and building it out. It's kind of a common thing now where they just make the universe bigger.
Well, that's what the IDW comics felt like, wasn't it? It felt like a reaction to Marvel, as everything does now. Everything feels like the Marvel movie has done it. Everything is a shared universe. But I think one of the reasons the IDW one it was good, but it was the Transformers comics were already established, long established before they crossed them over, and suddenly it was like, but also G.I. Joe has been happening here all along. It's like, has it? These two brands have been going in comics separately, and there's no mention. And suddenly it's like, no, they all exist in the same universe. Whereas here, doing it from the start is so much better because it's like it feels natural and it feels like yes, they do. Like Marvel comics, like when characters appear in New York, it's like, of course, these have all been on at the same time, and you can imagine Spider-Man's off over there while Reed is in the Baxter Building doing something.
It makes total sense. So I mean, we've said spoilers several times, but at this point, I really need people that have not read issue 2 to understand that this is where the spoilers start. So, I mean, so obviously there's a bit in the latest issue where Starscream is attacking a jet with 2 pilots in it, and we find out that one of them actually can handle himself pretty well and manages to fire a flare right into Starscream's face. And he's the only human so far to present any kind of threat to Starscream in particular, who's pretty imposing in these comics, right? Like he's
he's hardcore. It's a great moment that though as well.
It's brilliant.
Very brilliant. Quintessentially Starscream though. He's still that one where he's still very braggadocious, isn't he? He's bragging and he's
100%.
Still, you can tell he's still got a chip on his shoulder about not being
bit of a maniac.
Megatron, and it's still that Megatron overshadowing, even though Megatron's barely mentioned in his comics. It's still, you can see that's that's what Starscream is feeling, and the way he's like doing that, you can see he's being set up here for a big fall, and then that happens when he gets shot in the face. You see, he's still that classic Starscream. He's so overconfident and doesn't think lower.
He's still a loser ultimately. Yeah.
He's like a kind of little spoilt child.
He misjudges every situation he's in.
Yeah, exactly. He's just cocky and arrogant. And you kind of know, I mean, we haven't met Megatron properly in this universe yet, and I'm sure we will. That's a whole other topic. We'll get to that. But you kind of get the feeling that probably Megatron wouldn't be as arrogant as Starscream is being in this situation, and like he wouldn't be rushing after humans as playthings and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? It seems a bit petty and a bit kind of beneath him almost, and the fact that he does get shot in the face and bested by what turns out to be Duke from G.I. Joe. But so the point is that I think that's a great way to introduce that character because it sets him up immediately. Like, and there's a little sort of B story, isn't there, with Duke just to kind of introduce him in this issue. But I think it's just perfect because it's naturally something that makes you interested. It brings him into the universe in a kind of convincing way. He's not forced in at all. You could have it not be Duke and it would be sort of incidental to the story, but the fact that he is there sort of just fleshes it out a little bit, I think.
So from my point of view, I didn't know who Duke was. So because I really don't know G.I. Joe, so I was just like Duke.
Jason, it was called Action Force to us, if that helps.
So so I do remember. Now, don't get me wrong, I do remember little figures and stuff like that, but I had no idea about the character names, any of that stuff. But I guessed. But I did like that they had that, like, what was it, 2-3 page bit at the back that I was like, now this makes a bit more sense as well. So it kind of enjoying that as well, just kind of learning more about it because I don't know anything about it as well. So
wow, interesting.
So this is going to be a learning journey for you. I had one concern from this, which was I thought the way he was introduced was great, but in the back of my mind I'm going, oh my gosh, please can we not have another like where G.I. Joe go after the Autobots because they all think they're all evil, and we have a year of comics.
Oh, that's true.
We've lived this many times now. Can they not? I like that in Rise of the Beast where they just introduce G.I. Joe, and it's like, yep, we know the Autobots are the good guys. Let's move on. We're like, yay!
Agreed.
Let's move on from that story now, please.
100%. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see ultimately how Joe.
Bumblebee's already been blown up.
We'll get there as well. But it'll be interesting to see how Joe kind of works into this universe and how they kind of meld it and everything. I mean, there's already talk of, is Megatron. And again, we'll get to Megatron proper, but like some people are saying that he's on the cover of the Cobra Commander comic that's coming. Yeah. Have you seen this?
No, I have not seen this.
So there's an upcoming, I think it's the is it the first G.I. Joe comic that they're doing? I can't remember now. I need to relook at the schedule. But there's a Cobra Commander comic coming very soon, like in a couple of months or something. And there's a picture of Cobra Commander on the front of the comic holding what very much looks to be a Walther P-38 in his hand.
Nice.
And so, of course, people are like, is that where Megatron is? You know, but we don't know. We don't know.
Yeah. So actually, this is what I love about the new Skybound comic, in that we've had 2 panels with Megatron in it.
Yeah,
I think it's been, and
both in this issue.
But and just and one mention that Starscream just stops as he freaks out when the name's mentioned, and one of the panels is really visceral, where it's Prime and Megatron fighting, and I think that's the thing about this. This is one of the main things I would say about this comic, is it is a lot more visceral than any Transformers comic before.
100%. Yeah. Well, so there are some, I guess before we get into the kind of detail of like where is Megatron and stuff like that, there are some broad brushstrokes that I kind of wanted to talk about with this comic. And the first was really just what you've hit on there, Jason, which is the kind of the style of it, if anything. Like, so the thing that struck me particularly about the first issue is that it's heavily G1, isn't it? It's very much feels like a 1980s Marvel G1 comic in its way, but it's something new as well. And the violence and the stakes and the action and the pace of it all is the thing that really kind of struck me as something that's like, whoa, this is different to what I've read before. This is something else. What, absolutely. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the thing that they defined was, and even Daniel, as the artist, took this and didn't want to go too far. He was he talks about giving a nod to the original G1 comic. But they define both the Transformers and the humans and Earth as very different. One's, they keep within the script, they're talking about, like one's solid, made of metal.
Oh, I love that.
And the other one, and the other one is soft. And the moment where Prime accidentally steps on a deer and kills it is kind of beautifully heartbreaking, isn't it? It's just like, it defines his character so well within that bit, and it's kind of horrible and slightly funny, just as he cradles it in his hand, looking at this thing. But just, it's not done in a clumsy way or anything like that. But and there's a line as well where he says about how the world gives way underneath him, which is not.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful line. Beautiful line.
That really struck me, that whole conversation, because as I was reading it, all I kept thinking was, this is nothing like I've ever read or seen in a Transformers piece of media before. The even the conversation about like what's a dad, and things like that. Like it, okay, but I understand the concept of family. I get that, and
it's alienating him. It's making him an alien, and I think that's something that's not emphasized enough in Transformers.
Yes,
they are aliens, so there's concepts here, and I think it's kind of brushing that thing in that classic argument where people go on, oh, the Transformers, they're not men or women, they're not male or female, isn't it? And here it's showing like they don't know what dads and mums are and stuff. There's lots of concepts that are alien to them, and I think it's just really well done. But this scene when he steps on a deer, it's so well done. It feels so right, if that makes sense. Like the way he's talking, like you can hear it almost in Peter Cunn's voice, and I can hear sad Transformers music from the cartoon when like Beachcomber's out there and looking around at the forest, destroying it. It's that like the violin version of the music, and like you can hear that here in my head. It's like that's what a picture is going on. But the way he's explaining how the world feels to him, it's just really nice to get that insight to him, because normally it's just beautiful. Like I don't understand the culture, whereas here it's like the physical sense of. It's not just like in the vintage stuff. It's always like, oh, we have tires rather than floating or something, something like that. Whereas here, it's more like a real sense of the full world. It's like everything is different. Like Cliff Jumper's reaction to humans.
I was about to say that.
What it should be like.
Yeah, that was lovely. Yeah. And Carly's reaction. Who's one of the human characters, when how she reacts and kind of calms him down. It's just like, do you want to start again? And he's just like, but and even how they introduce Cliff Jumper and define his personality so quickly. within like a page. You know, that's really nice.
And it contrasts really well with the Decepticons, because when you see Starscream and them, when they meet humans for the first time, their first thing is they gleefully squish them, don't they?
Yeah,
but they're very much like, oh, what are you? I'm going to torment. Whereas here, Cliffjumper's first reaction is like terror, even though we know
he's scared.
If you're a fan, you know what Cliffjumper is. He's very much like, I'm right into the fight. But even he straight away is like, whoa, I'm horrified by this, and it sets it strikes a tone instantly that the Autobots' reactions, the way they react to different races, and the way Decepticons do.
Thought that firstly the Decepticons in this are absolutely terrifying. Like they're
really well done.
Oh man, evil. There's a bit in issue 2 where Skywarp lands outside the power plant, and it genuinely made me almost jump a little bit with just like, wow, do you know what I mean? This guy's imposing. Like you got that real sense of that is often absent in a lot of kind of more, I guess, child-friendly Transformers media, of like, you absolutely would be terrified by seeing this thing land like that in front of you. There's a bit of that obviously in the live-action movies and things, but it just really gave that sense of force and scale and just abject terror that you would feel, which is then wholeheartedly contrasted by the way the Autobots are portrayed, with like Optimus kneeling to talk to them, and even though he's large, there's that sort of almost like Iron Giant feeling about him, that he wouldn't hurt
That's
you. Do you know
reference.
what I mean? He just feels gentle in his way, even though he's still as imposing as they are. Really.
Well, it's a very good storytelling way of displaying instantly. Like the Decepticons feel they're above, so they always stand massively above and look down on the humans. Whereas Prime tries to get down to a human level and talk to them. That's how he tries to communicate to them on their own level, and I think that's. It shows the difference between them.
I think that was my conclusion. And actually, someone on our Discord said this today in the old spoiler chat, and it really resonated with me, which is that this was Bond's Rat, by the way, a little shout out. But it was
good old Alec, like him, good lad.
He's a good lad. He pointed out something which really struck me, which is that a lot of this is show don't tell, and that really works for me super well, because there's a way that Daniel Warren Johnson kind of communicates stuff through the imagery, through the pace of it, without much dialogue. And actually, the deer scene is a perfect example of that, because it's telling you everything you need to know about Optimus's character, even though we already, everybody knows Optimus Prime in some form or another. But this, just that 1 or 2 pages, I mean, the first sort of page, especially when he steps on the deer, and all you get is like, oh no, that's all he says, and I'm so sorry, and it just immediately gives you this sense of this just very responsible, thoughtful character that you want to know more about immediately. And there's a lot of that in the action scenes and things as well, that they're not heavily explaining the detail of what's happening. The dialogue is quite sparse actually for the most part, but it's used effectively, and I think that method keeps the pace moving as well. And actually, bizarrely, that sort of show don't tell thing I think is quite different to a lot of more traditional Transformers media.
Yep, I would agree. I think the thing that's really nice, I don't know about you guys, but for me, I should say, Sixo, it defined Optimus Prime's character to anyone that doesn't know him as a gentle and kind of really thoughtful, and taking that time to kind of apologize to something that he's taken his life. But then you've got Starscream, who is just a maniac. He's he's and he's cruel, and he's a bully, but a cowardly bully.
He's a bully.
And he's unleashed. He feels like he's been let off a leash, hasn't he?
Gleefully squashes the pilot from the other plane, and
it's horrible.
Splat, and it's like he grabs one of the guys and scooshes him between his hand. But that is certainly not the Transformers that I'm aware of within a comic.
No,
and but that was that contrast I really liked, actually, because they're like, right, this is where we're taking Transformers, and there's no hiding about the fact that these group are evil. And even what you said about Skywarp and about how he is cruel in the way that he's kind of towering down and kind of imposing himself upon the humans.
He's reveling in it.
Yeah, exactly. Like enjoying it and stuff like that.
They are enjoying it. They're all smirking, aren't they, and laughing as they're
tormenting
doing it.
people. That's the difference, aren't they? It's what they're doing. They're tormenting what they view as almost like pets
Like
or
weaker,
something mean, inferior creatures, and it's such a difference. But it's the thing with Optimus Prime, like the way you say there, the contrast is the way he's talking slowly, and he's very kind of curious about the world, but nice. But then, like the way he's introduced in the first issue, and he's so heroic as well. So you get that, and then you get the second issue where he brings it down a notch, and it's like you suddenly get this more not human side to him, but it's more I don't know, more into his character. But the introduction to him is phenomenal. Like,
that's great.
He's everything you've missed Optimus Prime being in media for ages, because he's always like the John Wayne character, but like in RUW he was so put down upon for ages, and here it's just like introduced straight away. He is the badass. It's just the defender of everything good and wholesome in the universe.
Can I point out that he's properly introduced? We see him deactivated, obviously, at the start of issue 1, but he's properly introduced when he's live and kicking again with a Rainmaker and a suplex. Like, that is just incredible.
Did you call it a Rainmaker? Where have you got that from?
Well, I know a thing or two.
Some New Japan Pro Wrestling or something.
No, I know a thing or two. Yeah, you don't have to worry about me. You know what I mean? Yeah.
The Okada move. I love the perfect plex, the suplex. If Daniel Warren Johnson, if you ever listen to this, come on and let's talk about wrestling, man, because I want to talk about that.
Yeah, that's your thing, Liam. Totally.
Yeah, it's incredible, honestly. Just
Kurt angled him.
Yeah, those scenes. It was the right kind of like real kinetic introduction to the character, and you're right. It's the sort of Captain America thing of like, oh, here he is. Do you know what I mean? You immediately feel
up
safe.
And his first, his first thought is, I'm seeing something. I'm going to stop these bullies, because he sees the humans in peril, and his first thought is fight, protect these. I don't know them. I can see the bad guys picking on smaller characters. All I'm going to do straight away, protect. And then you get that amazing moment of him running through the flames, holding them, which I just think is phenomenal.
Yeah. But then,
absolutely brilliant.
But by that heroism that he does immediately, then the humans within a page decide we need to help that guy. Pushing his gun towards him so he can grab it.
That panel of them pushing the gun is one of my favorite panels of the first issue, because firstly you've got Optimus in real peril, with like Ravage biting into his arm, and Starscream, again tormenting him in that kind of gleefully bullyish way.
Yeah.
And I've always had a thing for. And it's not always been done that well, but when humans are included in the action in Transformers in that really meaningful way, I think there's nothing else like it. Like there's a bit from the original G1 cartoon with Spike where he gets involved with the action. There's a bit where in Desertion of the Dinobots where it turns out to be Swoop, so it's fine, but there's a Transformer coming through the ceiling and they don't know who it is. And Carly's, all nervous and that, and he's trying to pick up a gun, like this massive Transformer-sized gun, to protect them, and it just really reminded me of that and the feeling of that as well. Of like
so much of that in his comics,
of his this little man, this tiny little organic dude that is very susceptible to harm in this scenario, but he's like risking it to push this object that's as bigger than he is across the floor to kind of help. And there's just something about it that really resonated with me, that panel. I love it.
I think that's what's really interesting about the creative team behind these comics as well, though, is that they're of similar age to me. And, they have grown up with it and they love it as much as we do. And they all talk about it. It's like, oh, this is an absolute joy to work on this. And this is what, and there's a real passion there, but there's also a real kind of respect, which is really nice to see, actually. And I really feel that comes across in the writing and how they've managed to just find their stride so quickly, because I feel that they've been thinking about this since they were probably kids. And they suddenly get the opportunity to put this
dream project, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can tell.
And that entire first sequence with Teletran 1, and this actually brings us nicely to Jetfire arriving, which overlaps into, spoiler alert, but Void Rivals as well. But Jetfire coming in, and kind of in the original G1 comic, Teletran 1 just woke up and started rebuilding. But that addition of Jetfire turning up and actually activating Teletran 1 to then continue that. And there's that sequence where it's Jetfire and Starscream as old friends, but are completely at odds, And, that in itself was, again, really not many panels at all, but that whole kind of heartbreaking moment
efficient.
where, just like Starscream coming in and just being who he is, and Jetfire trying to understand what's going on because he's missed out on centuries of war and doesn't realize that there's two sides now. And then it kind of goes through the two issues. I thought that was a really nice addition to and kind of mixing it up a bit as well. And then
I think so.
It was just beautiful, really nicely done.
I think there's a sense to all of it as well that it like a flow that works because like in the original cartoon. And obviously, a lot of this, the kind of setup and that, I think that's where I got to with all of this. The actual setup of it is very familiar. And then where it kind of immediately spins off from feels new and feels fresh because of the pace of it, if anything. So, for example, the idea that they're all deactivated aboard the Ark. It's not called the Ark so far in this comic, but for
it's a good point, actually,
we've not seen it on the page, but I'll refer to it as the Ark so that we all know what I'm talking about. The Autobot spaceship. They're all aboard the Ark. They're all deactivated. It's the exact same setup that it is for the first pilot issue of the pilot episode of the cartoon. But where it kind of feels like it's different is almost the arrival of Jetfire, and that's what takes it in a slightly different direction. I mean, the irony is actually in the cartoon, it's the Decepticons that wake up first too, but by accident, just purely because the
volcano goes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it happens to be, I think it's Skywarp that kind of falls into the beam, if you like.
That's right.
Isn't the first line, isn't it Skywarp going, Megatron, my leader, or something
that's
like that?
That's it. Skywarp rebuilds Megatron,
and
then Megatron says, we must rebuild the rest of our warriors or whatever. But then they just bugger off.
And it's Starscream who shoots the Ark, and that wakes up the Autobots. Again, always
all by accident.
Up.
Yeah.
Snatching defeat from the jaws of victory.
But it's all done by accident and coincidence in a weird way, and which is fine. I've never questioned it. I've never had a problem with it. But I like this way that it works because everything happens for a reason. Jetfire. All right, the discovery of Jetfire in Void Rivals is a little bit by accident, so that I'll say. But from there, he goes to find the rest of his comrades and whatever to kind of find out what's going on. He wakes up the Ark. He thinks Starscream is a friend, so he puts Starscream in. Starscream immediately figures out, okay, actually we need to get the rest of our warriors, up and running. But the stakes are such that it's immediately more disastrous and perilous than it is in the cartoon, and I think it really works.
Starscream shoots Bumblebee in the head, in front of Jetfire, just because he can. It's just
there is
horrible.
A really tragic irony to Jetfire as well here, because I think he's anti-war, he doesn't know what's going on, and he's very much I'm not picking a side. We know Jetfire's character, don't we? When he originally comes in, he's very anti-war, he's a pacifist, all that sort of stuff. But then here, the irony is he's the one who restarts the war because he comes up and wakes them up without any knowledge, and the war just kicks straight off again.
That's
whereas if he'd have left it, the war would have been over and continued to be over. Nobody would have been the wiser. But what do you think about Jetfire's introduction here? Because I think having read Void Rivals, it makes sense. But if you were a new reader and you picked up this issue, number one of Transformers, you're like, who's this guy? Why is he just flying in? Where's he coming from? Where's no introduction. It's just because Spike and Carly are talking, and if you look in the background, you see him through the door. It's like it's jet mode, and he flies in, comes in, does that, gets killed, gone, and you're like, where is this guy? Why is he here? What's brought him to this point? And I know you have to read Void Rivals 1, or it was 1, wasn't it?
It was 1. Yeah.
It was 1. Yeah.
And it just kind of feels a little bit odd that your first issue starts like this, where you have to have read anything. As a jumping on point for a new reader. I feel like that's maybe a little bit confusing.
It didn't bother me too much.
But that's because you've read the issue, isn't it? But even if you hadn't, I think you would have known Jetfire, wasn't it? Wouldn't you? Because that was going all around.
And I guess you're right.
Knowledge that the introduction, because he was all over covers and stuff. So I think there's a knowledge that the reason Jetfire's there is we already know he exists somewhere else. And I think if you weren't a Transformers fan and you just picked it up off a shelf the first time, I think that might be confusing. I don't think it's confusing enough to ruin anything else. It's a small trivial thing, but I think it's probably quite who's that guy?
I get what you're saying. I think it only works because, and I'm just looking at the pages now, but they show it.
It feels like there was another story, I think.
A little bit, but they show it from the perspective of Spike and Carly, which I think is what makes it work. And the dialogue, again, is efficient enough that it sort of gives you everything you need, because Jetfire comes in straight away and just says, okay, basically I'm back. I had enough power to kind of to wake you up, and I'm going to do that now, and we're all going to go home, and it's all sort of explained there, and then the whole like Starscream, my old friend, I've not seen you for centuries, so it's there, it's just very it's quick, I guess. But yeah, I was surprised that he got killed off as quickly as he did. But equally, I don't think that's a bad thing.
No. I also love the fact he's got tape and he puts that into Teletran 1 to...
I know it's like a cartridge or something, isn't it? Into Teletran 1. It's like an N64 or something like that.
It's like an Atari car, isn't it? It's like it's just come in with
a
sort of...
I know, yeah. I was just going to say, because I'm also now just looking at the pages in the comic, when it's Jetfire that makes the volcano, earthquake, doesn't he? He causes an earthquake, which then means that Carly and Spike fall down and then end up in the spaceship. But there's a full page shot where they're looking into the spaceship, and it's just all the bodies lying
all the
on
wreckage.
The floor. Yeah, and all the wreckage.
It's so evocative of the first episode of the cartoon and the comic, isn't it?
Yes, it's just, very much.
But it's really interesting the way that they've laid that page out, because they've got like the kind of two kind of core characters there, right in the foreground of Prime and Starscream, and then you start. When I looked at it, I was like, oh, there's Prowl, and there's Soundwave, and there's Skywalker, and then, there's Bumblebee.
Wheeljack.
Wheeljack. And you kind of start picking out from all the wreckage and stuff like that. But I was like, what an image, amazing.
Yeah. I also love how small it almost is as well, because it keeps it to a core cast of characters that you can see. You can see characters who are going to come into it, but it's not like, here's every Transformer, here's piles and piles of bodies of, look, there's Trax, Hoist, and all these characters that you might not see for else. It's keeping it to a core cast, but it's not a wide enough shot so that they can't say, well, the characters were there, they were just off to the side,
Yeah, it's true.
Totally.
I really like that. I like the smaller cast thing, but I like actually that it's not even just that it's a smaller cast, it's a tiny cast. I mean, the only Autobots in issue 1 are, other than Jetfire, are Prime and Ratchet, isn't it? Those are the only two, actually functioning Autobots by the end of it, and 3 Decepticons apart from, Ravage, and we get Rumble as well. But Laserbeak, that's true. Actually, thank you. Yeah.
But Soundwave and those crew, they're all together all the time.
Yeah, but the scale of the arc gives you enough of an impression that there could be more Autobots and Decepticons in there. And how nice is it seeing the arc? I know it's a ubiquitous thing in Transformers anyway, but like, it's only really a G1 thing, isn't it? Other than Cyberverse, we don't really see it. We only see it in G1 related stuff, which is everywhere now. I mean, because it was in Kingdom. That was like the first time.
It was in Kingdom, I was going to say.
We'd seen it for ages. I know there's an arc in Cyberverse and stuff, but really, it's mainly a G1 Beast Warsy kind of thing, isn't it? So to see it again like this in its classic style, crashed into a mountain, I just felt there was something like that really like got me when I saw it. It's like, oh, there it is.
You were thinking, arc at that.
Oh,
yeah.
No.
Archimedes would be proud or something.
Right.
But it's that like that iconography of the arc crashed into outside of a volcano is such a big thing for us, like for people of a certain age. And I know Transformers now, it should be for everyone. Age. But it's just seeing that nostalgic thing of that was Transformers when we were a kid. That was like a core element, and then it's moved away from that over the years since. It's not anymore. The Transformers, they fly about, they come in all sorts of ways now, they hide. Whereas here they crashed, and then they were rebuilt in disguise against the will almost. And this is a return to that, and I like that.
Yeah, again, it's a familiar setup, isn't it? But the comic feels like it's taking that familiar setup and storyline in a very different direction very quickly. But I like that because it's got all this sort of nostalgic 80s vibes about it, but a new storyline.
And seeing the humans scaled in like the engines and stuff, because whenever we saw them in the arc, in the cartoon or the comic, they were usually inside the arc or they were outside and it was in the background. Here you get to see it as like an active almost participant in this because they're in it, scaling with it, if you know what I mean. They're moving around the stuff that's massive, and it shows off the scale of they're tiny. Look at the size of these engines. Also, how did they get through the engines? Like, what?
That I don't know.
They fall
straight into the main room
through the engines. It's worth mentioning at this point that because someone will be screaming at their computer or whatever they're listening to this on, with this knowledge, because Daniel Warren Johnson again mentioned on his director's commentary about this panel of the Ark with its thrusters, that because you mentioned about the kind of iconography and the classic look of the spaceship, but apparently he initially drew that with three thrusters. That's tricky to say. Three thrusters.
Three thrusters.
Is that why the two on the end look like hastily tacked on?
Yeah, he had to tack them on. So basically, it was he said that Hasbro didn't, they had some edicts, if you like, with this comic, but nothing too specific, but this was one of the things that actually they were very much like, no, it's got to have 5 thrusters, because I guess maybe because they've just released a toy of it and they want it to have a similar look to that, and I'm sure there's a reason. But whoever's kind of looking after all their IP and stuff at the moment, one thing that Hasbro, the way they work, is that ultimately it won't necessarily be the people like the toy designers worrying about this. It'll be someone that's managing IP and things like this that's like, that's not the proper look, and so it'll be whoever that person is that's really finicky about the way the art looks.
Because I think we've seen it before. When we see it in the cartoon, does it not alternate between, like, you see some of them? Because I know it's half buried, but I think it's meant to have 5, isn't it?
So normally.
I think it's normally. Although I'm thinking, was there not a little collectible metal version of the Ark?
There was one. It was in titanium, and it has the back end of a ship.
Yeah,
it has the back end of a different craft.
That's right.
To sort of simulate like the way the Autobot sort of separates, but it's a different toy. I can't remember what the toy it was based on, but yeah, a little bit of the Ark pulls off the front.
That's right.
Oh, don't tell Daniel Warren Johnson that. He'll be he'll regret
Keep
having
him up
had
at
to.
night.
Yeah, exactly. Having to redrawn that.
Also, just a quick tiny mention for the little red triangle on the, below the thrusters.
Yeah,
because that is a classic Transformers detail. They've always got these weird little triangles arrows and stuff on them.
Yeah.
It was just really funny seeing it.
Like a G1 toy side swipe crotch. Yeah. That's another word.
There's so many of those little things on Transformers, aren't there? It's just really fun. You see it, and you're like, yep, there's triangles. An 80s robot thing.
Makes it part of the world, totally. One thing I wanted to talk to you guys about was so the human characters.
Yes,
because that's who we start with, and again, how they're introduced with Spike and his dad, and his dad's at a bar. It's pretty dark. There's an underlying story here that's obviously going to come out.
Yeah, well, really interesting setup. I mean, the dad presumably is an alcoholic, or certainly going through some sort of trauma, isn't he?
Yep. Yeah.
Old spark plug.
Yeah, another classic character, but all of them are classic human characters, aren't they? But different to how we've ever seen them before. Sparkplug in some ways almost feels like the most familiar. I don't know, but although that
he works
PTSD
at an electric
thing,
plant sort of thing, doesn't he?
Yeah, exactly. There's something.
He's
there.
Still an engineer.
Yeah. Whereas Spike obviously is going, wants to be an astronaut. Carly is now quite unrecognizable as any version of Carly we've seen before, I think.
Even her hair's different, isn't it? She's got black hair.
Yeah, totally.
It's a weird thing that struck me. It was like, I like her. It just was a thing. I like her trainers, her high tops, good choice. But I
got shoes, man, honestly.
Well, it's all about the shoes, as old Spike Lee says. But I at first I wasn't so keen on Spike because I think it was after IUW they made him a soldier. And I really never liked that.
Oh, yeah.
So here it was at first, it's like, he's an astronaut or something. But then the more it went on, I was like, actually, he's not an astronaut. That's where I thought it was going. He's going to be like,
he's a kid.
Yeah, he's still a kid. And I like, actually, it's a different twist. He doesn't need to have yellow wellies on all the time. And
yellow wellies, yeah.
I just felt that I don't know. There was something about him being astronaut. I felt like it was leading a bit too much like, and he's going to be an expert on science and stuff for them, and then they go to space and he's going to do this a bit more.
I think he's just a good kid. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was a kind of naivety about them as well. They're growing up and just kind of like, just want to look at the moon with his telescope.
Yeah.
And next minute he's introduced to giant robots that are in a civil war,
Yeah.
It's just like, but a lot of the shots of him after that are just like complete shock and awe that he's going through, which was,
I love all the focuses on Spike and his reaction to stuff as he's observing. We said about it like with Optimus Prime in the first issue, where he's just seeing Optimus in the fight and you just see his eyes. Like there's a lot of panels that focus on his face or kind of his, how he's seeing things. And so you're really seeing it, although Optimus, we know Optimus as the audience. It's this weird world where you're seeing it through the eyes of a protagonist that actually knows less than you do as the audience coming into this, if you're familiar with Transformers, and who isn't by this point. Everybody knows Optimus is the good guy. And it's funny because you get that real sense of it's show don't tell. You're observing that he's seeing all these things and understanding that actually, okay, this is someone I can put my trust in, and I really like that bond that they quickly develop. It feels real. So that one thing I would say about a lot of the live action films is that I've never particularly felt like the relationships between the humans and the Autobots is earned in a way, so like even to more in Rise of the Beasts, I would say, but even then I feel like it's more earned here. The conversation they end up having at the beginning of 2, which as a pace across the 2 issues is needed, you need that cool period after the action of 1, and it feels really real, and both the characters kind of coming together. I love it, the way it's done. I think it's really good.
I think there's a interesting flip there, because you see Spike has an interesting relationship with his dad, doesn't he? It's kind of a strange relationship, and it feels like Optimus quickly fills that void of a father figure, almost the way they're talking.
For sure.
It's kind of like not just physically looking up to him, but he's kind of got that like sense that Optimus is quite wise and older, isn't he? It's that vibe. But I think it's quite interesting for me, because when you look at Spike, one of the things I loved about the classic G1 Spike is that he's just a random kid caught up in a world. And if you watch the first miniseries, he does that thing where he's writing his diary and he's talking about his experiences of what he's seeing, and he's introducing the Transformers to the world. And that's what I like here, is when he's trying to explain what about Earth to Optimus. It feels like a callback to that. And I think that's quite
it's
a fun little thing.
Yeah, it's really lovely. I just, again, it was the relationship between Spike and his dad, and then later on, actually, where his dad dismisses his friend who's trying to reach out and help, and just kind of give him a bit of support, and is like, if he can be there for Spike, he could really appreciate it. And then, it's just that reaction of kind of anger. Yeah. Next minute, his friend is squashed. He just literally picked up, but over a few panels, and that's like, that was the bit for me where I was like, okay, this is where this comic is going now. That moment of just seeing that human in the grips at Starscream, isn't it?
Oh man,
and just squeezing it together, and the line of like, ooh, squishy.
Squishy. He calls them the squishies in issue 2.
And they do that then throughout, and it's like,
it's gross.
That's dark, really dark.
Let's talk about I mean, we sort of talked about the violence briefly, but we'll come back to the human characters and the human cast in a minute, because I think there's more to say. But just to touch on the violence then, I think what really stands out for me is that we've seen tons of violence in Transformers comics before. I mean, even the Marvel UK comics in the 80s were rife with violence, horrible, unspeakable things happening to characters at times. But it was always exclusively robot on robot violence.
Yep.
It was never humans being squished or stepped on, or
even with Circuit Breaker, the Circuit Breaker would be torturing a robot,
but never the other way.
But never the other way around. Yeah.
It's funny because I saw a lot of chatter about that on the internet, where people saying about, the squish bit, and they're like, that bit, I've never seen anything like it. And I was like, have people not read Transformers G.I. Joe by Tom Scioli, where Megatron eats one of the G.I. Joes?
Well, okay, so that
lives in the back of my mind all of the time. It like haunts me. It's like a panel of a comic I wish I'd never ever read, and I can't escape it. I can't escape this horrible panel. I don't know if obviously you're not a G.I. Joe guy, Jason. So,
but if it's Transformers related, I did get the crossovers as well.
Did you?
That. So, I don't remember that panel, though,
this is quite recent. This is from a few years ago. It's an IDW comic, and it's
maybe not then. Actually, no, maybe not on that one.
But there's a bit where Cobra serves Megatron a meal. It's one of the G.I. Joes, and he's served him on a platter with like salad, and he's still alive. He wakes up and then he starts, and it's just you hear the chomping, and the Megatron has a lot of teeth. I can't get it out of my mind. Haunts me.
Gross. But I think it's more the that is something else that's just deeply disturbing. But it's more the kind of like it's the fact that humans are now fair game in the sort of majority of this universe for me. Like, and it feels different in that regard to anything we've kind of seen before. Because even in the movies, there was there were obviously humans dying in the movies. At the hands of Transformers and things. So it has happened in universe before. It's not to say, oh, we've never had humans,
It's not quite so graphic as this, though, is it?
No, exactly. And there's a kind of, I think it's the glee with which the Decepticons are kind of reveling in it, of just like this power that they obviously have over this physically inferior species, that they're just absolutely taking delight in, squishing them and stepping on them. And the honestly, reading issue 2 today, the bit where Starscream firstly steps on someone was very definitive. Like they're all shooting at him and they're just like, all right, whatevs, step on you. That honestly, that panel, I literally went like that as it happened, like out loud. Do you know what I mean? I
had to reread it. There's double taking. I was like, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing?
Yeah, and again when he claps later on and with the pilot.
But you not think that was the thing that before? Because we've talked about this. It was to sell toys, the comic and stuff like that. So there was rules. But now it's just like there would be a point where I'd be like, it's a giant robot. Why doesn't it just step on him? Or why doesn't it just squish him? Why doesn't it just drive over him? It's all quite obvious. But there's a bit of me that I always not worry. Is that the right word? There's a bit of trepidation in me when a comic and a brand like Transformers goes down the kind of visceral, kind of violence route.
Yes.
Just in the concern that then does that stop a whole new generation getting into it, because a parent might pick it up, look at it and go, this isn't for you, and it kind of blocks it, but then is this comic for little kids? That's it's a different thing, isn't it? Ultimately
they're not attaching animal crackers or Cadbury chocolate bar to this.
Exactly. You're not.
There's no Build-A-Figure on the front of it.
I really wish they would. That would be amazing.
It's an interesting consideration, though.
It is.
It's just something that it just changes it. And they did do this previously, though, where they had like a kind of more kids version of the comic, and then they had the other stuff, that was kind of out there as well.
It is a recurring theme in Transformers G.I. Joe crossovers there, because I just remembered in the Devil's Due one, I think it is Thundercracker transforms with, I think it's Major Blood, one of the Cobra bad guys. He transforms with him inside the cockpit, and it crushes him, doesn't it? And he's got that grin on his face. And I just remember that it seems to be a thing wherever G.I. Joe are concerned, somebody is going to get brutally murdered by one of the Seekers.
Someone's in for it. Yeah, I think I've seen a bit of discussion about the violence online, and I have seen some reactions already from adult fans, not saying exactly what you're saying,
Jason.
It
was really in step with the comic. It felt in step with the tone of what this is. Like, even it ties in. Like, if you look at the way each panel is lit, like the way they on the arc, it's kind of dark and it's got this. Yeah. It feels like, I was trying to explain it to you when we were at MCM the other week, and I was saying it reminds me a lot of the early 2000s Vertigo comics. It's just a look to it, the way the colours are and stuff.
Exactly. Well, it's ultimately it's a Skybound property, which is the co-brainchild of Robert Kirkman, and Void Rivals is Robert Kirkman. Walking Dead,
So that's what I was going to say.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think we knew probably what we were in for. Maybe not to such an extent.
But it's not grimdark either. It's not
exactly
so dark where it is reveling in the brutality and the violence.
Yeah, it's not Walking Dead, but
and I think, and that's I suppose that was it, because then finding out about the new publication, the team behind it is like, oh, how far are they going to take this as well?
Yes,
but it's an angle that we've not had in the Transformers universe previously as well, and that Robert Kirkman's work, and I've read the Walking Dead graphic novels, and they are amazing stories. And as we're all very aware, it's not really about zombies, but this is the thing I'm really interested, and this brings us nicely to Void Rivals as well, and what that's building out, and that for me was a really beautiful set piece.
Agreed.
2-character set piece, which is just to create something, and there's been 5 issues so far, but to create something and then build a story out of that, I thought it a different pace to what we have here.
Feels very different, set in the same universe and some nods, obviously, but yeah, feels.
The Energon Universe.
Nice. Yes, valid.
Dun, dun,
True.
dun. But yeah, it totally feels different to Transformers as well, and I hope they can achieve that with G.I. Joe again. That it doesn't just feel like more of the same in a way. I mean, I think
tacked on,
one thing. I mean, not to make too many MCU comparisons, because I will forever maintain that shared universes were a thing before the MCU came along.
True.
But particularly in comics. But in Marvel Comics. But one thing that I do think that the MCU did well at the start of it was that they got a different kind of tone for a lot of their properties, and they even though yes, there was a bit of a formula to some of it, it felt like, okay, I'm watching a Thor film now or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It felt like a different film. It didn't just feel like 5 of the same film necessarily. Some people might disagree with that. I don't know, but I hope that they're able to kind of give G.I. Joe a bit of identity that feels different somehow to what we're reading here, in the way that Void Rivals does immediately to me.
Yeah.
Yep, totally. The reason I mentioned Void Rivals, though, as well, is that then that introduces here and there just some kind of B-list characters from the Transformers universe.
It does.
Quintesson coming in, it's like...
Skuxoid.
Yeah.
Skuxoid, man.
How cool is it as well?
Yeah, that's amazing.
While they're in space, it's the season 3 spacey type characters who are appearing.
True.
Like Skuxoid and the Quintessons.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's very much it's not just 1984. It instantly leaps to they're in space, so it makes more sense for it to be like season 3.
It's true, actually. Yeah, there's even a Slizardo reference as well, and it's funny because the Skuxoid thing and all of that is surprisingly on point. Like even his ship is the same ship that you see in the season 3 of the cartoon. Even functions in the same way, with it's like a rock.
What do you call it? A rocksteroid or something like that?
Yeah, Rockeroid. The Rockeroid.
I love that.
It's great. It's got like the metallic
I think I've been
inside.
to a club called that.
Oh, yeah. Rock round
in your flares.
Yeah. We've got Rock City here, so
love
it.
But
it's all surprisingly on point for season 3 of the cartoon. And I mean, whoever's putting this together, whether it's Kirkman specifically, who I think is a Transformers fan, or others involved as well, they've done their own work. Let's put it that way. There's reference to Nebulons at one point.
Yeah,
another
ship,
season 3 thing.
It doesn't feel frivolous though. It feels like world building, but it's not like the way James did it in More Than Meets the Eye, where it's a lot of references. But it doesn't feel like they're just chucking it in to get a cheap wrestling style pop of people going, "Oh, it's that." It all feels purposeful. Like maybe Kirkman and Daniel Warren Johnson they've got all these pieces together, and they're like, "What would work here?" And they're moving things around. It all feels very purposeful. The only thing I think didn't feel like that was the Shockwave appearance in Void Rivals.
That was a bit random.
Which just
that confused me.
There's no build up. It's just you turn the page and there's Shockwave standing there. Like, hello, and then he's gone. It's like there was literally no purpose for this other than, although from a narrative perspective, actually, the one thing it does do is it establishes that Shockwave is alone again on Cybertron, and everyone's depowered.
Totally.
So just like the cartoon, isn't it, and stuff.
And but he did even say as well that it's just like, I've got all these deactivated Decepticons. Leave before I squash you. Which is this like kind of
it sort of gives it a hint at what's going on, doesn't it? Without too much. Like we haven't seen a lot of Cybertron really. Like there's a bit of a flashback in issue 2 of Transformers, but otherwise, actually, Void Rivals bizarrely is our only look at present day Cybertron currently.
Yeah. So weirdly. That was one thing I was going to mention to do with Void Rivals, actually, and some of the imagery in it. And there was some panels, the shattered ring that each side is living on.
It's very Halo. There's that one planet with the thing going around the middle.
It's that computer game.
But there's a lovely.
Yes.
I know.
It's not very popular. It's quite a small one. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Did you get it on the SNES?
Came out on the Amiga.
Was it?
Back
the Wii.
Always on the Wii. Everything's on the Wii.
Everything's on the Wii.
At least it should be. But there was just some really nice layouts.
Carry on, Jason. Get us back on track.
There was just some lovely layouts where they had like the kind of vision of the ring world as it was, and then they put these panels over the top of it with the speech bubbles coming out of it, and they were just really beautiful. And I think that's what I enjoyed about Void Rivals, that because it was these two characters that you were finding out about, and you weren't too sure, and there was no sides as such, and their relationship. So they really kind of worked the relationship. Some panels didn't even have text, you just literally have an action moment, and how they developed that over the 5 issues that I've read so far was really nice.
Really lovely. I got to tell you, I am in love with Lorenzo De Felici's art. I just think it
amazing.
Is spectacular. It really... I don't know. There's something about, actually, this is weird to say, but both that and Daniel Warren Johnson's art in Transformers both remind me, and I mean this in the most positive way possible, they both remind me of Calvin and Hobbes. And I know that's weird to say. I know that's so weird to say because it's it's
almost like that etching quality to it.
Right.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I see what
exactly. They remind me of different bits of Calvin and Hobbes, and I'm a huge Calvin and Hobbes fan. I literally own every official book that you could think of. Major respect for Bill Watterson, who was always a man in a different time, as it were, and like someone that was incredibly principled with how he conducted his work. For what many people will have written off as a silly comic strip or whatever in a newspaper, but just incredible stuff. But his art, you're right. It's the Daniel Warren Johnson stuff reminds me of some of the panels, particularly the way he draws planes and things like this. There were often scenes in Calvin and Hobbes where Calvin would be imagining, like a jet fighter.
Spaceman Spiff. Oh, yeah, when he do the really rendered stuff.
Exactly, the really rendered stuff. And that reminds me of the Transformers art. And actually some of the Spaceman Spiff stuff where you get like galaxies and things like that. And it's all beautifully painted in kind of the Sunday strips of Calvin and Hobbes. That reminds me of Void Rivals. Or the other way around, I suppose. Yeah, it's a weird comparison to make, and I'm sure there are probably better comic comparisons, but I can't stop with that feeling, honestly, when I'm reading it, of like there's just something very evocative about it.
There's something lovely about that, though, when you think about it, because Calvin and Hobbes is all about his imagination, and bringing that alive and doing that within the comic strip. Also, Bill Watson kind of breaks through the panels as well.
Yes, exactly.
And you notice that in Void Rivals.
Yeah.
So he's got the edge, but then he puts the spaceship's nose through the panel, so it goes into the panel next to it and stuff like
100%.
that.
Well, it was one thing he was sort of famous for, and he talks a lot, Bill Watterson, in the way, I've read a lot of his stuff, and the way that he would purposely push the format, particularly of like the Sunday strips, to kind of, because they were supposed to be in a very set blocky format, and he really pioneered that change for American newspaper strips and things. And this, there's a lot more freeform in comics ultimately, because you're not as set as for newspapers. But you're right, it has the same quality to it, of weird angles and not being so bounded by sort of a more traditional style comic
breaking out the frame
format.
It's great. And it also, because I always, for any Sunday comic strip, they had 4 panels sometimes to work with to get, and the first panel was always like, a throwaway panel. So they had 3 to do a gag ultimately. But they're, what we've talked about tonight to do with both of these comics is that the amount that they're getting across and the amount that they're progressing the story.
Yes.
It's really dense,
Hugely so.
Yeah, and that's, I just think, and going back to what you were both saying earlier about the team behind this, they've both in Void Rivals, Kirkman talks about it, and Daniel talks about it in Transformers, and that they have a love of Transformers. So the fact that they're doing these putting these bits in, like the Nebulan ship and stuff like that, and the stuff from the season, they will have watched it, they will have seen it, and obviously they'll be gathering stuff and working with Hasbro to do this as well, but. It does feel like they get it. They know which bits, like you said, Liam, those little details on the arc and things like that. Really nice. All the stuff that just adds to it. Yeah,
it's fun without being over the top referential. It's not just there to make you just look at it and go, "Oh, that's that." It's a fun detail that you recognize straight away and go, "Ha, it's cool." But one of the things I really enjoyed about Void Rivals is I read it. Obviously, I was drawn into it by the Transformers connection, but I I didn't enjoy it for that. I enjoyed it for its own story, and 100%. I really like I was saying about the Shockwave stuff. Was like, it's cool, but it doesn't fit. And I'm really interested in the story, the way they've tied those two characters together, and you've just got a comic based around those, really, and then it expands. And one of my favorite panels across all of these comics so far is the one when the guy, I don't know what he's called, but the sort of regent fella on the planet is on the video call, and it cuts to him, and he's like, "It's your son," and then it's when he turns off the monitor, and he's like, he's dead to me from a long time ago or whatever, and then he turns off the monitor and he looks down, and he just like, and it's all dark behind him, and you get a real sense of like, actually that's weighing on him, and it's like, oh,
it's so ominous,
so fantastic. And like you were saying about the universe they built there, Jason, the way it looks, it's so, obviously it's sci-fi, but it's so that kind of cool sci-fi, really little glowing bits everywhere, but it's not,
it's really like synthy, and there's a quality to it.
But like you're saying about the Calvin and Hobbes thing, the way the world works in these comics, it's not like a lot of modern comics where they don't resist temptation sometimes to go overly detailed, so there's so much to look at on a panel. You don't just flow from to the next, whereas you look here and your focus isn't on the world, it's on the characters. But when you look at the world, there's enough there and it's perfect, but it's not so over the top that you're like, oh, what's that? And you can't follow.
Some of the panels are almost like paintings, honestly. They're just beautiful. I'm blown away by the quality of the art in both these books so far. I'm finding them a real visual treat. And, you know, I feel the need to say at some point that, because there will be comparisons made, and it's not why we're here tonight, so I don't want to get into it big time. But I you know, obviously we're doing a mini series at the moment, reading IDW comics, and I feel the need to say that I'm blown away by those comics, and I love them. Do you know what I mean? And I think that they're very different to what Skybound is proving to be so far. And I don't think that one is better than the other. I just think that
they're different, aren't they?
They're so different. They're so different, and I think that is nice that they're different. I think that's,
you can enjoy different things, man.
Exactly.
You don't have to compare everything. I know it's a thing we do, and it's because it's a Transformers comic. We've had Transformers comics. Your natural inclination is to go, I love this other thing. Yeah. How does this compare to it?
Is this better? Yeah.
And it's easy to sit here and say, oh, you shouldn't do that. You can't do it, because I do it all the time. But you naturally are going to do that. But you do have to just kind of look at it its own thing. Whereas, and for me, I think one of the things I love about it so much is, to me, it feels like a modern successor to the Marvel comic, but not.
Yes.
It doesn't feel like it's not copying it or trying to be it. It feels like it as if they did it now. You know what I mean? It's kind of, it evokes so much of it. It's that vibe, like 100%. I was saying about the differences. Because to me, I came in via the cartoon, obviously, so that's my origin. So to me, I know the comic came first, but to me, the little differences in the Marvel comic are what make the Marvel comic. It's just little changes here and there, things that aren't the same as the cartoon. And I'm like, oh, I like that. It's fresh. It's different. I like it. And that's what I like about this. They do the same thing where it's so familiar. Like the Marvel comic, to me, reading that was to the cartoon, but different. And it's just, they changed little things. And I feel like that is so purposeful, the way they've done that, in that it's not 100%. Like everything's different. Here's an enormous change. It's like, no, there's subtle differences and little important changes, but nothing that's like, and now Starscream is something completely different, or it's completely different.
Totally.
It's all the characters, like you're saying about the violence and stuff, and it's like, it doesn't feel out of step within the world they've generated here. The characters, they all feel like the Generation 1 characters without feeling like exact copies, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
like, they all feel very true to themselves.
Yeah,
they feel like honest representations. Yeah,
100% agree.
I think for me as well is that when you think about like Modern Meets the Eye and everything that's gone before, and obviously we're going through that at the moment and very much enjoying it, and that is such a good comic. It's such a great story.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So defining. So the follow-on, the thing that was coming next, you know, there's a lot in the fandom. There was a lot of chat about that. What's it going to be? How's it going to be? You know, and for me, this was the right move. You know, it's just like, okay, we are defining something different here, and we're going to explore something different. And they did that when they put the team together, you know, and they really were like that immediately, because I know the work of all those artists and writers and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, well, this is going to be something different. It's a brave move. I really like the fact they've done it as well. But it's not, I don't think it's been universally, like, there are obviously people that are like, oh, you know, I think feel a certain way about it because it's a move from, you know, maybe they came into the fandom through IDW or whatever it is. And
I can understand that completely.
We all went through that.
Yeah,
How many
we did.
people
I
are
was about
still
to
doing that
say
about
that.
G1? You know,
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
When we got
totally.
the it's not G1, it's not Dreamwave.
Yeah.
This happens
I
every
did that with-
generation.
That's
It
the
repeats.
thing.
Yeah,
It's
This
Beast
is their
Wars.
moment.
Yeah, exactly. The franchise moves on ultimately, and I don't mean that in a harsh. It moves on. Get on board. You know, I'm not trying to say that, but I think at the end of the day, it's a 40-year-old franchise. It's had many iterations. There's room for all of them. It will continue to evolve. I know some people are less convinced about this because they're kind of like, oh, more G1, but I think it's being done in a fresh way, honestly.
And how many people have you seen who said that? Like, well, that's one of the things I've really
A
enjoyed.
few,
Actually,
but not
it's
many.
seeing
Yeah.
the flip after the
Yeah.
people who have said that. I saw a load of people who were saying, "Oh, you know, I can't believe they've gone back to this." And then when the comic came out, so the same people going, "Oh my
Yes.
gosh, that was fantastic! I love what
I
they've done
agree.
here." And you're like, "This is the thing. It's so easy when you see a preview or something is announced, you instantly form a judgment based on
Yeah.
something else you're comparing it to, and then you have to read it. Like the amount of times, like was
Yeah.
it the classic one is Batman 1989, the movie, and when Michael Keaton was announced as Batman, and the people were going crazy, writing letters, and then now Batman Keaton is the definitive Batman for so many people, and that's
Absolutely.
Yeah.
like
Love that.
such a
Love that.
perfect example of this sort of thing that happens with everything.
Well,
Yeah.
Transformers fans are notorious for this. Let's be fair. I mean,
Yeah.
I was actually I was
Every
watching.
fandom is though.
Yeah, I was listening to and watching on YouTube the Aaron Archer podcast with Proto Man earlier, which I've got well into, and we'll talk more about that another time. It's a fantastic podcast. If you're
Not jumping ship.
I'm not jumping ship, but not planning to. But it is a really good podcast. I would wholeheartedly recommend it because there's some amazing information in there for like Unicron trilogy toys and all kinds. I was telling Jason about it earlier. But the one thing is that there was a slide that I think Proto Man put up on the screen at one point that really actually took a screenshot of it today. So I was like, oh my God, it was about animated, and it wasn't the focus of the conversation. They weren't talking about animated, but he made reference to, well, when animated came out before the cartoon was actually aired, back when it was just pictures of the images and stuff, people hated it, and he had some of the quotes that he'd obviously found online.
The Funhouse mirror thing, do you remember that?
Yeah, I totally remember that. Well, he found some of the quotes online, then he'd just put a little screenshot of some of them together, and it was like people, there's one here that just saying, okay, I'm usually against hating art designs of Transformers, but this is just ridiculous. It looks like ass to me.
How many times does the word trash and garbage appear?
You're right, exactly. Any dreams for cool Transformers media in the next few years, dead, rust in peace, and stuff like this. And it just goes on and on and on. You know, WTF and, you know, whatever else. And if someone compares it to like Bruce Timm and Justice League, you know, and things like that. And it's just so funny because I think it's exactly what you're saying about this comic now, is that as soon as the first episode landed, even some of the previews, people were like, oh, it's actually pretty good. And I think it's just give it a chance.
Do you remember Heath Ledger, when Heath Ledger was announced as the Joker? Do you remember that?
Yes.
Now it's like a genre-defining performance, isn't it? But that happens every time, like for everything. And I don't know about you, but like as I'm getting older, like for me, it's like now I'm able to look at stuff every time something comes out, and I'm like,
100%.
It might not be for me, but I'm gonna wait till it comes out and enjoy it rather than get like furiously angry and then watch it and go, oh, actually, I feel like a bit of a tit now because actually I really love it. Animated is a perfect example. Like I remember the hatred for that. I think it happens for everything though. Like every single franchise, every time there's a new Star Wars film, every time there's a new Batman, it's like they've announced a new Pope, and it's like, oh god, here we go. And then it turns out it's fine. Every time there's a new Marvel character,
a lot of Batman references from you tonight here, right?
Because I'm a Batman guy. But let me jump to the other side. But like whenever they remember the Guardians of the Galaxy when they first showed that off and people going, oh my god, it's not like the comics, and I was like, you've never read the Guardians of the Galaxy comics. Very few people did. Like, and then the film comes out and it's like one of the biggest films ever made.
They love it.
It's just like just stop overreacting to silly little things.
It comes down to the fact though that people they love what they have at the moment and the idea of change.
It's true.
Yes.
You know? And let's be honest, we're going through change at the moment as well, you know, so within the pod. So
I miss you, Maz.
What did you say, Maz?
You know, we miss you, Maz.
Who? Actually, who? What are we talking about?
Who's that guy? But there is, you know, you can understand that, and there's a bit of coming to terms with that. But then you can judge something on visuals say, and I think because of the world that we live in now, we get fed stuff before we have proper chance to consume it and enjoy it and actually work out what
That's
it
true.
is.
That's
ultimately,
fair.
you know, and
social media and clicks and yeah,
totally. So you make a judgment, and it makes it very hard then for any creative to kind of get their work out there and get it kind of. Because even then, with like spoilers and finding out about stuff before you've even had a chance to kind of see it,
press,
it's tough. But I think what's going back to the comic and going back to everything we talked to tonight is that yes, it's G1. That's how they look. But more than anything, for me and what we've talked about is it's the story and it's that character development, and that's
100%.
always been what's behind Transformers for me.
100%.
That's the important bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And from reading this, I got a feeling I've not had from Transformers media in years, where it felt like a warm comfort blanket. Like I
really did.
I love More Than Meets the Eye. I love all that stuff. And at the moment, I like that stuff. I love that more than love this. But there's a feeling to this where it just feels like a really nice warm trip down back. Like there's this feeling like there's like such a familiar vibe where it feels like I've missed all of this stuff. Sometimes it's nice. I know it's nice to have brand new everything, but sometimes it is nice to have that feeling of familiarity to go back. I mean, we are 40-year-old blokes doing this podcast about our childhood and stuff. But I mean, it is just nice sometimes to go back and see something older again. Just be like, I just like when RUW revisited Marvel with which one I can't remember what it was, not the Regeneration one, the later ones. It's nice to see that again sometimes.
The Transformers will return after these messages.
Right, well, it's that time for the bit of the pod where we talk about our sponsor for the evening, and that is tfsource.com. Do check them out for all your Transformers and third-party needs, and we're going to do this as we always do this, which is to basically take a look at the site, see what they've got in stock and available for pre-order right now, and just natter about it, essentially. So that's what we're going to do. So we're all having a look at tfsource.com. What's caught your eyes, chaps?
Silence.
No pressure.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something, Jason, because you went, I thought you were about to go. Do you want me to go?
Yeah, you go, Liam.
Someone go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I am going to go with the Heat Boys, Leonardo, Mechatron,
Of course you
Ninja
are.
Turtles. Well,
yeah.
You and your Heat Boys.
I love them Heat Boys. But remember we were TFN and how much I loved that Leonardo that was in the bar.
Love that Leonardo.
So much so I bought it as soon as I came back, and it's become my favorite toy I've ever bought this year. So it's amazing. But they are doing another one, but it's a Transformer one that turns it into the van.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It's so cool. I remember I saw an image of that on social, and it's a bit untidy in the vehicle mode, maybe, but
yeah, it kind of looks like somebody's hit it with like a shock hammer. Like used to get on the back of a bus and crack the window. It's got that vibe. But like the Leo looks pretty cool. It's just, man, I'm glad it looks so different to the other one, because the other one is amazing, and they've sold me on all of them. I thought I could just do one, and I can't. I'm sucked in.
So what, are you going to get the 4 turtles?
Maybe.
You are, aren't you?
I didn't realise they were doing all 4. I thought it was just one.
They're doing all 4. They're doing Shredder. They've got an April as well.
No, really?
And then
wow.
And now they're also doing these Transforming ones at the same time. It's not fair, dudes. No doubt. I mean, if Leo's the van, what's Raph going to be? Is Donatello going to be the blimp? How are they going to even do the blimp? That makes no sense. But then I don't think the van made sense.
So I'm just trying to find it. Oh, I see here. Yeah. There's a few, isn't there? Because they've got that's the van one. Yeah, the van mode is.
I do find the van mode hilarious, because if you look at the shot of the back, it's got 2 clear plastic windows, despite the fact you couldn't see through them because it's just all cut parts. It's like, why? Why? There is a shot of the van somewhere with it's got like all the knives attached and swords.
Yeah, that's the picture I'm looking at now. The van mode is a little bit third party, if I dare say. It's a little bit, but still. Yeah.
The thing you have to remember about this toy, so I have the other one, is the swords you see, they're not plastic, they're metal. So they are sharp. And they're not like, toys we get over here where the swords are like rounded off. These are sharp. Sharp. I haven't tried eating my dinner with them yet, but they are good. But it also seems to come with this crazy sort of Kotobukiya style stand. I don't know if you can see that in some of the pictures.
Oh, yeah. What is that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like they've looked at those Gundam things, like the chain-based bits.
It's massive.
Yeah, but it appears to have some sort of like transforming element as well, because if you see at the back, it looks like it folds up and goes behind him. So
it does, yeah.
and then turns into some sort of road thing. I'm like,
that would be amazing for photography.
Maz would love that.
He would. He would, yeah. Be having trains on there and all kinds. Yeah.
Also, one last thing I want to say about it is if you look at the shot, you see the turtle inside the body.
So
on the other,
it's turtle.
Yeah, this one's fully painted and it looks a little bit bigger.
Oh
and the other ones were tiny and it came with like a little clear blue turtle that was so small and it goes in the back, but this one goes in the front. And yeah, I just love the aesthetics are so different as well. And I'm like, if you're buying toys like that at that sort of price, you want them to be different, wildly different. So I approve of that.
Yeah,
It looks good.
It's a funny one, isn't it? I'm not normally into your crossover, like Transformer, Star Wars or Transformer, although it's not labeled as a Transformer, is it? But
It's coming.
Did catch my eye.
It's coming.
Yeah,
the crossover, because they at the minute Nickelodeon are flinging that Turtles license out to everybody left, right, and center. We've got Masters of the Universe Turtles coming now. They're doing everything, and there's no way Hasbro aren't gonna get in there. They're doing a really Stranger Things Transformer. There's no way the Turtle Man.
I was gonna say, yeah, it would. I mean, with Universal monsters and all kinds, it absolutely would not surprise me if there's a Turtle Van Transformer or something at some point.
The Stranger Things one is just a VW van, isn't it? Which is the Turtle Van from the live action movie. So they could just take the little surfboard thing off.
Absolutely. So Liam likes Heat Boys, confirmed.
Love them Heat Boys.
Yeah, Heat Boys.
Heat Boys. Playing with the Heat Boys.
Sure.
That is not how that Kenny Loggins song goes.
Right, okay, yeah. As soon as you mentioned it, I was like, of course it's that, because I know you've been on a real kick with these recently. And having seen it at DFN, it is bloody amazing. Can't blame you.
You can't stress to someone until they've handled it what it's like, and you like the feeling.
Very impressive.
It's all metal. It's almost entirely metal.
Yeah. Again, very third party, because those safety standards are not there. They don't have to be there, do they? So I've got a couple of third party things you could easily impale yourself on. So just don't let your kids play with them. That's all I'd say.
Exactly.
Yeah. What about you, Jason?
So I'm going to go back to my youth, but there's a modern version of a not Transformer. It's a Voltron Vehicle Force mini action series. So back in the day, I had one of these. Although I
Matchbox. I had it too, Jason.
Did you? But it was the one that didn't come apart. That's the one.
That's exactly the one I had, Jason.
I was so frustrating and I was so confused. I was like, why? And I ended up unscrewing it and just broke it. It never went back together again. But this one is like it does separate. It does go into parts ultimately. So you get this really nice kind of Voltron figure with the pointy head and propellers on his hands and minivans for feet. But then you get like little tiny vehicles, really cute little helicopters, and I don't know what that middle one is. Some kind of space toaster.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at the wrong one then. I'm looking at the guy that's got dogs for hands. That's not. That's
the classic Voltron.
Yeah, that's classic dog hand man.
The little, just randomly, I got given a suitcase full of Starcom and Dino Riders toys recently, and in it was the little red spaceship off the front of the vehicle Voltron.
Yep.
Just randomly, there's one of those inside it.
So that was the only bit I had left of my original as well.
Most people
I found it. It was always in my Lego box, but it's really nice. This Voltron toy. It's only $66. It's great.
Tiny, yeah.
Yeah, it's cool, and there's loads of them as well.
That's a buy.
I see the one you're on about now. I know very little about Voltron. I'm going to be completely upfront, but I feel like between you two. Well, I was just going to say, I feel like between you two, it feels like we're heading towards a potential Voltron episode at some point.
Yeah, it's a very nice. It fits within that kind of my love of Gundam and your giant mechs and all that kind of stuff as
big
well.
Robots.
So,
and the
robots.
Netflix show as well is fantastic. If you've never seen it,
that was great. Yeah, that was great.
Amazing.
My son wasn't a fan, so I just watched it on my own instead.
Fair enough.
That's my choice for today, guys.
Great one.
Fantastic.
All right. I'm going to rep the kind of core brand that we have going on this podcast.
Shill Sixo is here. Corporate Sixo.
Right. Exactly. Corporate Sixo. Yeah. Corporato. I'm going to stick with Transformers. I'm going to go with Beast Wars Universe Magmatron, Legacy United, just because, my God, this thing, we got to see it in person, didn't we at Comic-Con? And it is mega. My God, it is very exciting, this toy. I think the pictures and stuff online make it look cool anyway, don't get me wrong. And I'm a big fan of the original toy. And you know me that I'm always loath to say this, but dare I say this new one looks better, I think, than the original.
Ooh.
I don't say that lightly. Do you know what I mean? And you know what? I love the current.
It stunned me when you said it when we were there.
Yeah,
I
I can't help but think it. I always stick up for the kind of current product and things like this, but I have a real soft spot for vintage stuff, as you know. But I honestly, having seen it in the case, especially the size of it, the thickness of it, the face sculpt is immense. It's so good. I do not think anybody will be disappointed with this. I've not handled it, admittedly, but just the look of it, I think, is so imposing. This is a character that virtually no one cared about like 3 weeks ago, and it's all I see now in terms of excitement over Twitter. So, yeah, they're doing something right with it. Perfect update, in my opinion. And I love that they've stuck with like just the classic dinosaurs not having their own individual robot modes. I was chatting with my old mate B-Mac about it, and he said that I think there was some conversation at some point about should we give the individual dinosaurs robot modes or not. You know, they'd sort of debated that, and I'm really glad they didn't, and they just kind of stuck with it. And
he was very pro that, wasn't he? Very pro them not having the robot mode.
Exactly. Yeah, just the classic
they keep it pure
dinosaur turducken thing that they've got going on there. It is. It's a turducken. You know, it's just 3 dinosaurs shoved together.
It's a dino.
Yeah,
a diducken.
A diducken. Diducken.
Won't even try.
Turducken Rex.
You know,
maybe, I don't know. Whatever it is.
Velociducken.
Velociducken. There you go. Yeah. It's 3 dinosaurs smushed together.
Yeah.
Into one awesome package. It looks incredible. Yeah, that's 100% my pick. I will absolutely be getting this thing.
Nice.
It looked amazing. I can't stress enough. I was well impressed when I saw it. It just looks fantastic, and it's a proper flex for them to do something so weird and out of the box as well. It's not, it's not just a very typical character. It's something so different, and it's exciting.
Yeah, it really is. It really is
cool.
So that's our sponsor segment for today. So do check out tfsource.com for all your Transformers and third-party needs.
We now return to the Transformers.
Right, well, we're back after the old sponsor segment, and we are going to get back into it with Skybound. Just a few bits that we want to kind of get through, some last bits to discuss, and then, see where we end up. For me, crucially, I had some questions that I noted down, and I just wanted to kind of float some of these to you and see what we got out of it, really, because I think, obviously, it's still early days in this Energon Universe. Liam.
Nice.
I don't know why that makes you laugh, but it does. So, yeah,
TM.
Exactly. Still early days, but I think there are some big questions that have come up. So I'm just going to fire these at you and let's see what we make of it. Firstly, what time period is it? Because
84, isn't it?
Well,
I don't know.
That was established somewhere. I'm sure
it's not been mentioned. Not been mentioned.
Sure.
Yep, 100%. So it could be the 80s, it could be present day, could be anywhere in between, I think is the thing. And what I will tell you is that Daniel Warren Johnson, again, on his director's commentary, basically said he's playing it fast and loose with the time period, that he doesn't feel interested to pin it down to one specific time period. So
I thought that it had been said somewhere that it was like 84, but obviously not. But did you know? But even the police cars are prowls. Did you notice they're all the Datsuns?
Totally.
Right down to there's a shot of the back of one where it's got the join for his feet.
Does. I noticed that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's obviously whoever drew it just drew it off the toy, and it's so obvious because it's got
it should be.
The windscreen is split in two on the toy.
Yeah.
Which I don't think the actual car is, not the windscreen, the rear window.
Yeah.
Well, it's him himself, Daniel Warren Johnson, that's drawing it. But actually, that's interesting. Separate point. But did you know that also he's drawing Prime off a third-party Prime?
No,
which one?
Really?
Yeah. He is. It's Magic Square. Yeah, he's got the magic.
Oh, right, nice.
He's got the Magic
one
Square.
That I always want.
Yeah, the masterpiece style.
I've got the
one.
cartoon.
Yeah.
I've got the cartoon version. That's lovely.
Yeah, that's the toy that he actually had it on the live stream. I have to laugh because I was sitting there watching this thing, and I was thinking. Someone from Hasbro is going to be watching that going, no, Daniel, no! What are you doing?
Do not mention.
Third party. I had the Walter White in the car meme in my head of just like, do you know what I mean?
The
Of
rage.
him, yeah, exactly.
I can't see that it's not the 80s though, because everything in it, like all the technology, the
Feels
fan
80s.
that the Carly and Spike drive is very retro. Spike
Yeah.
is dressed very much like Marty McFly. He's got that, with the body warmer, the 80s. Carly has got the 80s crop top.
But think about now, Liam. Think about now, and you going into shops and seeing.
It's how I dress, to be fair.
It's going full circle at the moment. So,
well, that is the thing. So I think what's interesting is that there's a lot of stuff that suggests it's the 80s.
The entire absence of mobile phones.
Yeah, no mobile phones.
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah.
Carly's van has got like Conan the Barbarian on it and stuff like that, which is kind of, got that vibe to it as well.
So I saw that as a bit Lord of the Rings.
Well, there's a Lord of the Rings thing on there as well. But again, that could be modern, that could be old. You don't know.
Yeah.
That's the thing. What is weird is that the very first page of issue 1 has some flashbacks in it, and there's a war which could be Vietnam or could not.
Yeah.
It's not really. We don't know. It kind of looks a bit Apocalypse Now. I thought the kind of vibe of it, which would be
And at the end of issue 2, when you see Sparkplug in his army gear,
True.
It's very that era of army gear. Like if you look at the helmet, it's not modern looking stuff. Right down to the guns are all quite classic old style guns.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it really does have that look to it. But also, one of the other opening panels is a space shuttle disaster, and it looks like it could be Challenger from 1986.
Yeah.
If indeed these are meant to be the real world events portrayed in the comic universe, if that makes sense. It may just be that they've taken those kind of cues, of like Vietnam or whatever, to kind of give it that flavor. It's not explicitly those real world events, but
is anyone watching a TV in it anyway? That's normally a telltale sign.
Right? Yeah,
that's true.
Exactly.
Oh, that's a quick one I wanted to just quickly shout out. Did you see Teletron 1? Did you see? It looks like a giant flat screen on the wall.
Yeah.
Like normally Teletron 1, the screen is built in. This one, it's kind of sitting off like someone's mouth.
Yeah, it's like, totally. Modernized, totally. I've just realized now that, Sixo, you said that. I didn't realize that was a space shuttle taking off on that.
Yeah.
I couldn't work out what that was, that image. I was like, I thought is that Jetfire? Is that him coming in? Or,
I had to read that first page a few times to kind of get, what was happening there, but it's because there's obviously a reference to kind of something that's happened, like a tragedy or whatever. But it definitely looks like the Challenger space mission, which was obviously a disaster. So who knows? To be honest, I feel like you're right, Liam, that they're playing this up as being the 80s, but it's very non-distinct.
Hang on, just scroll through. There is a TV in when they're in the bar, they're watching baseball. But,
it
does look
on,
a bit.
It's flat screeny. It's big.
It's modern,
it's
but
too big for an 80s TV. That
is it. Like we had big TVs, but
not like that though.
Yeah, but
there's no way you could suspend an 80s TV like that. It would pull the wall down.
That is not an 80s TV.
Me, I go to a lot of football, and they always have in the 80s and 90s. They had giant TV suspended in all the concourses. Yeah, I know this because even up until about 5 years ago, Forest still had like 90s tellies. Yeah, I think this is a flat screen. It's just there's something, if you look on the left hand side, it starts to go back a little bit. But it's more flat screeny. I think to be mounted on a wood panelled wall like that.
Yeah. I think the point is it probably doesn't matter, is the thing, and
it's a timeless quality.
Yeah, exactly. It's purposely indistinct. But I think what will be interesting is that as they build out this universe with Joes and Void Rivals as well, it implies that everything is set in the same time period. So it could all be that Void Rivals, everything is 1980s. Possibly.
Oh, that's a good point. I never considered that.
Exactly. So it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, because when Jetfire wakes up and he just shoots off, doesn't he? Because he gets a signal.
Yeah.
How long does he take to get to Earth?
Well, so this was actually my next question, which is, what's the timeline here? Because it feels a little bit confusing at times. So the reason I say that is because so Jetfire wakes up. It's not immediately clear if he goes straight to Earth or not. We presume that he does, and it kind of reads like that.
It's confusing a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. The key thing is that makes it confusing is that when Jetfire wakes up in Void Rivals, he obviously analyzes the kind of dirt and things like that, and assesses that he's been asleep for millions of years, potentially millions of years. which ties in with kind of classic TF lore. But then when he's talking to Prime at the end of Transformers 1, he says he's been away for centuries. So that's a weird one. And then when they're talking about the Autobot Decepticon war, Starscream says to Jetfire that it's been going on for the past 100 years.
That's right. I noticed that. Yeah.
The thing that doesn't make sense then is that... So again, it makes sense that Jetfire is obviously unaware of the war, so he's been away for either centuries or millions of years. We don't know. So, and the war has obviously been going on for a lot less time than that, which is different to classic.
Is it though? Because in the classic one, we always talk about it going on for millions of years, but that's because they were trapped for millions years under a volcano.
Right.
I don't think it specifies how long
Yeah.
the war itself has
Had actually been
actually
running.
been happening before the events that we know take place.
But I don't think that means you can... The war must be more than 100 years old. Let's put it that way. Do you know what I mean? Which is what
100 years
Starscream
war.
says. The 100 years war.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just a bit of a murky timeline, I guess, at the moment. And maybe it doesn't really matter again. Maybe it's the same as the setting. It's not really
I'm
important.
sure it'll get filled out at some point as well, because as longer it goes on, it's bound to happen.
It feels like the dormant period, the way that the Transformers were dormant aboard the Ark, is probably a bit less than 4 million years as it's typically portrayed. It feels like actually it's a slightly truncated timeline, and maybe that's no bad thing.
Because they didn't. That's true. They didn't do the kind of like crash into the volcano and then dinosaurs and then trees growing and all that kind of time lapse.
We've got no idea. No frame of reference.
They're leaving a lot of room, aren't they, for themselves to maneuver, which is good.
Yeah.
And maybe if you're a Cybertronian and you are alive for millions of years, maybe it doesn't. Maybe the difference between thousands and millions isn't such a big deal. I don't know, or thousands and hundreds certainly. Maybe it's just maybe it will all kind of fill out a bit. But at the moment, I would say it's a bit murky.
Yeah,
there's a fantastic episode of the Thundercats reboot in like 2012.
Yep.
So not to go off topic, but they cover something like this and that, and I've always think it's one of the best things I've ever seen in this context, in that they have the Thundercats characters, but they have these little characters called the Petlars, which are basically leaves, and they live a lifetime in it's like a day or something like that. But the episode is told from their perspective of it being a lifetime, but to the Thundercats, it's like a blink of an eye, and it's just really well done. Like these characters, they age and they have these all this stuff happens to them, and it's like they've gone through an entire lifetime of 100 years, 50 years, or whatever, and they've grown old and died. And the Thundercats, it's just like, then it's the next day. You know what I mean? And I think it's just quite that's great, that perspective of your life, say for the Transformers, who can be immortal almost. Time moves completely different than to us, who have 70, 80, 90 years or whatever. To them, that is just a blink of an eye, or a blink of an optic.
A blink of an optic, indeed. Nice. Flicker of an optic, maybe.
Ooh, flicker. Windscreen wipe of an optic.
Right, sure. We can keep going. But I think maybe you're right. I don't know. I thought that IDW, particularly More Than Meets the Eye, I thought they did that quite nicely. And, James Roberts talked to us a bit about that, didn't he, when he came on about some of the stuff about transforming and things. And good guy. Talking about, what's it like as a transformer to transform or things like that. And that he was always kind of keen to explore these oddities. And that's what I think why I liked stuff like the floor, the ground swaying and stuff like that in that mention. Because it felt like they were exploring some of these weird things about, I'm actually a living robot. What does that mean?
Do you know, there was a bit I meant to mention to you both earlier, that Optimus Prime quite often was drawn mid-transformation within the panels.
Oh, we haven't talked about that, but
I loved that. I really loved that, because the Decepticons were always like robot mode, or then they were straight into like alt mode, and there was no kind of in between. They were just action, whereas Prime was kind of exposing himself. He was as a I mean that in a nice way.
Hold up.
Oh, exposing yourself
comic,
in a good way.
In a good way, exactly.
Okay, Jason.
I don't know if that defense will wash.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that, does it?
I was exposing myself in a good way. Your Honor.
Your Honor.
Sorry. Yeah. I was being polite. But he's kind of then just mid-transformation in like 4 different panels. He does that as well.
It's amazing.
And it's really subtle, but again, defines
it's the year
who he
for
is.
it, isn't it? After Rise of the Beasts. it's very much the year of mid-transformation Optimus driving around.
Do you know, it made me feel and think that he was older, a bit slower, even though he was doing all this action fantastic stuff and all this kind of stuff, but just a calm, kind of taking his time compared to the contrast of Starscream, who wasn't at all,
He's the dad, isn't he? Again, like the vintage depiction of him. That's what he feels so much like that. And like you were saying about the Andrew Wildman sort of version of him, that's one of the things that really comes through here, is that bendiness to him, that is. He, like we've seen so many pictures of Optimus Prime and dynamic poses, but there's just something about the way he's drawn here. He's tall and athletic again, like it's a thing Transformers seems to miss since the vintage era, is that Optimus Prime's model was mostly legs with a very small body on the top.
Yeah,
it's true.
Like when you look at it, and it's
high-waisted
something that
trousers.
That's one of the things when I always say about toys, they don't quite look right, no matter how accurate they try and be, because they never get those proportions, because obviously it's harder for a toy and he's always more squat, and it's like that's the thing that's always missing. Like you think of that classic depiction, that model, it's always that shot, isn't it? It almost looks upwards at him.
It is.
So he looks super tall, and it's like
the perspective.
I think
that's
the thing. And it's back here. It's nice to see it again. He's got that athletic look to him, and that he's got that quite bendy thing that I think was quite prevalent in the Marvel comics.
I also want to say, actually, talking about Prime, and I meant to say this earlier, so I'll say it now. I know we talked about it with the deer and all of that, but this is just, it feels so nice to read what I perceive as my Optimus Prime. Rise of the Beasts.
voice.
He's not moaning. He's not moaning. It's so nice.
Exactly.
Not weary. He doesn't seem weary. He just seems like a little bit tired. But
exactly. The panels where at the end where he says to Spike, "No, it's my responsibility." Do you know what I mean? I've got to go and deal with this. I brought them here. Is perfect. Just perfect. Pitch perfect Prime. Honestly, it just absolutely resonated for me.
At the other line as well, where he's sitting, I think, with Spike again, and they're talking, and it's like from above looking down on him. He's got his arms on his legs, and it's just family is the one speech bubble. Perfect. And that's just, it really gets you in the heart. It's like
he's mourning Bumblebee.
He is mourning Bumblebee again, and it's like, how they've defined that right at the beginning. And, as you said earlier, Liam, tonight, about how when he was Spike's explaining mum and dad, but then Prime picks up on family. Oh, I get that. And how they define
can get that concept,
Lovely.
It's a universal concept.
Well, okay. This was gonna be my second to last question, but let's bring it up now then, as it's come up naturally. This is my other big question: is Bumblebee dead?
No. Bumblebee's never dead, is he? Let's be honest. No.
I sort of people say that, but it makes no sense, because they're already literally destroyed and crumpled up anyway, and they get rebuilt. So what is this one extra blast going to do? Telstra still going to rebuild him. She's still going to rebuild him anyway from a dead position. It's true. Got another role in him.
It felt a bit more definitive somehow. And that panel, I think it's the fact that it's firstly so graphic, so prominent, the way it's drawn, so framed in that way, and the fact that the character is quite literally shot in the face. It was
no spark in your face, though. That's the thing.
True, but it felt beyond the storyline itself. It felt more like a sort of meta commentary on the direction of this series versus where Transformers has been since 2007. Really, with Bumblebee.
Yeah. It does, but it feels like a kickoff, like almost like instantly set in the tone. This is this, Bumblebee. I feel like in 6 issues' time, there will be. So where is Bumblebee? Here he is.
Maybe
you're no longer Bumblebee. You're Goldbug now.
Well, there you go. That's who I've got on my desk tonight, sitting next to you.
But great toy,
a classic.
Yeah. It's a great toy, yeah.
A 1987 classic, that is.
The best version of that mold. That Netflix mold or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's really
nice. Was that not the original? I saw it too quickly.
No, it's the
Generations one. From the it's the Buzzworthy
Bumblebee.
Collide?
Creatures Collide
box set.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the best toy from it. Everybody.
That's
Ransack,
why I bought it off Joe.
Too many names, too many words to remember all of that for me. Too old.
Did you buy that off Joe?
I did, yeah.
That's funny, because that's where I got the Bumblebee G.I. Joe thing I've been posting pictures of, was also from Joe.
Nice, yeah. He's doing a bit of a collection declutter, I think, at the moment.
Love you, Joe. Good lad.
He is.
Good
yeah, good guy.
So the thing, so yeah, I felt like it was a commentary on the franchise, where we're going, too much Bumblebee, kind of a bit of a reaction to that. And I had that feeling when I was reading the issue. And then again, on the old director's commentary, which I will keep bringing up, Daniel Warren Johnson sort of confirmed that was the case, and that it was basically a very purposeful way of taking Bumblebee out of the story.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Purely because he's been so prominently featured. I mean, he's the only Transformers character to get his own film, isn't he? I mean, not even
That's
Prime has
his own
had
named
that,
toy line, Buzzworthy Bumblebee.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that it makes that's what I thought he'd done, is to take him off the table for a bit. But
yes,
I can't see Hasbro mandating he's dead now forever. He's too prominent. Everything, it feels like, give it 6 to 12 issues, maybe a little bit longer. He will be back at some point, because they're going to have to be introducing characters who aren't here or dead in some way.
Yeah, true. But I do wonder if they will use it as a way for Prime and explore his character, because the relationship with Prime and Bumblebee has kind of been done before, but now that he's missing, that's quite interesting. So what will that do to Optimus Prime? And
gives him an element of loss, doesn't it, to deal with early on?
Yeah,
because obviously he's come to a new planet and he's lost his own planet, but this is a very easy and quick way to get him into that loss mode, because obviously he's lost Bumblebee now, so he can mourn that for a bit, and this sense of something missing.
Yeah, for sure. So my next big question then was, how do we think Quintessons are related? Do we think they're the creators of the Transformers, as per the cartoon? Do we think they're just some random incidental alien race? Do we think it probably doesn't matter?
They're definitely not an incidental race, because there's clearly a hatred from Shockwave for them. So there's obviously something. But they also reference, he says very offhand, the Quintesson, doesn't he? He says, you start the Age of Wrath and nobody forgets or something. The Age of Wrath was a Dreamwave comic.
Yeah.
I think it was abandoned, wasn't it, when they went bust?
That's right. Yeah, they only got that was when all the issues started getting muddled and all that.
Yeah. I think it was a Furman one or something like that. But yeah, and I just saw that. But I think they're obviously important to the Transformers, whether they're the creators or not. I'm not sure. But Shockwave clearly hates him enough to want him off the planet.
Exactly. I feel like it'll come up again, no doubt. And I think the fact that we're getting scenes like on Quintessa or wherever that was as well now in Void Rivals 5, they're obviously building more and more to kind of having the Quintessons being a presence in this universe.
That's how I read it. They're I don't see it going the way the cartoon went, but that they want to build out that character and that other kind of race. I kind of see it as a different, not related to the Transformers, but there's history there. Yeah. And like that little, as you say, about Shockwave and that kind of like, I don't even want to contemplate that being on my planet. Take it away,
Which again is a bit more Marvel comic than
it is
Sunbow cartoon. So yeah,
exactly,
for sure. And the big question then is simply, where is Megatron?
Ooh,
yeah, that's a very good question, isn't it? Because Prime has a flashback to fighting him.
On the shuttle.
Ark. Yeah. Well, it's not explicitly said, but it's heavily implied that's where it is, because he says like the last thing that I saw was your planet, and it's shown as Megatron's opinion. So did he get Jetsons? But then Starscream obviously says, don't mention his name, doesn't he? It's got this whole
totally
thing about him. So obviously the Decepticons know he's not there. They don't go and look for him on the Ark. They just assume there's something has happened in between.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating as well that Prime doesn't even mention his name. You get the bit where he's talking about, Starscream is one of the many we've been fighting for centuries, among others. And you see him, and he's in the panels, but at no point does he...
He calls him the worst of all, doesn't he? Or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah,
brutal of all, or something he says, refers to.
The worst of us,
Yeah, he does. He says, it was during our escape that the most powerful of the Decepticons came to extinguish the spark of my kind forever. So,
that's ominous stuff, isn't it? That is,
I also noted in that panel that obviously Megatron has got his thumb in Prime's eye.
Yeah.
Which is the state that we see him. Exactly.
Fluids going everywhere.
You see him broken,
yeah.
So, but it's I really hope they don't do a thing where he's introduced in G.I. Joe as Cobra Commander's gone, because I feel like it deserves a grander entrance in this world. It feels like there's more to it, and I think it would be a bit sad. I'd hate the idea I like the idea that the Ark is untouched, and I think if Cobra had already been in, nicked a bit of technology and gone, you're like, it's kind of, it wastes that whole Jetfire revealing the Ark.
But could it be that, you know, in the battle that Optimus and Megatron are having, that
he gets jettisoned,
chucked him out the door ultimately, you know, and
or I mean, it may have been that they were still, you know, in space or something, and you don't know, and that Megatron fell out somehow.
Has Megatron even made it to Earth yet?
Jettison some weight, you know.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The Ark probably couldn't fly through space without losing that bit of weight. That's what it was.
Classic.
Just like Astrotrain.
It was interesting because I wasn't sure in issue 1 if Megatron was on the Ark, deactivated, and simply that, you know, he just didn't get reactivated, whether that was by Starscream's choice or, you know, happenstance or whatever. And then ultimately they, you know, Optimus obviously blows up Teletran 1 so they can no longer reactivate everybody, and maybe he just didn't get brought back. But it seems clear now that he's just not on the Ark. So where is he in this story?
It's very obvious it's a mystery now, isn't it? It's moved on from just being, we haven't seen him yet. You know, there's something greater going on here.
Yeah. Well, it was even Skybound themselves played up with it. You know, on their social media, they tweeted out a picture actually saying, "Where is Megatron?" So they're playing up to it as well. And, you know, it might, for all I know, or all we know, it might be that Cobra Commander image is just literally them teasing you with something that's completely incidental. It might just be a random
look over
gun.
here. And it's, totally.
So
quite interesting. But there's, you know, there is no, in that image with all the Transformers just in the kind of next to Teletran 1, you know, Megatron's not there, obviously. There's no obvious, you know, and even though you said, Liam, about the ship is bigger and he could be elsewhere, but no, I feel there's going to be a whole other story that we'll find out about to do with Megatron. And
we'll find out that he's actually in a big room under the Hoover Dam, being slightly frozen. MBE1.
Or on the dark side of the moon, you know, something like that.
Yeah.
You know.
All
full crossover, all of these ideas.
There's dragons.
Simmons will be in soon.
Underneath the enemy scrotum,
Oh no, let's not think about that one.
Oh no.
Can we feel like we've missed the most important part of this comic?
Go on.
We haven't spoken on it. Well, Sixo, my dear boy, do you recall recently we did a mini-sode on Optimus Prime's trailer?
Yes.
And can you remember specifically? I said, we were talking about it in fiction, and I said, I can't believe they never do it. And I said, I can't believe they never use it in fiction. Why? And we had that whole conversation. And then it was literally the very next day, the preview for this showed up. It was the next morning. And I remember saying, posting it in our chat, and we were like, oh my God. Literally after we just talked about it, look at it. Here it is.
Perfect.
And it's
I'm
there.
so glad you remembered to mention it. That's brilliant. Yeah.
It's got a different name, hasn't it? What does he call it? He calls it something else. He doesn't call it Combat Deck.
Your tactical trailer, he calls it.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. And it's the Combat Deck, yeah.
Yeah. I love the quick explanation as well. Like you said, it left our Jetfire left our Cybertronian technology intact.
Yeah.
You know, and it kind of explains that they're not just trucks.
yeah, exactly. There's Roller there as well.
Yeah, Roller's there. It's
nice.
He's got the little gun on his head as well, hasn't he? I think Roller.
He does. He's got a little gun. But it looks like maybe the gun is being used as like a repair tool or something. I don't know.
Yeah, some kind of laser.
But you see his wheeljack that they're putting back together, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
But so you have Prowl, but also like there's a fun thing with sides of vehicles here, because you've got the human van, which has got like a He-Man style Castlevania mural on the side, which is so 1980s, you know, with the barbarian and the castle and all that stuff.
Yep.
But then you've got Prime's trailer, and you see that shot of him and Ratchet, and they've got almost matching stripes.
The way it goes widescreen, you know.
Yeah.
I love that.
Prime's got that dark stripe with the Autobot logo, but if you look at Ratchet's next to him, it mirrors it.
That's true.
It's even got the same bit where it moves upwards.
Yeah, that's so true.
So it does.
It's so true. I'd not noticed that specific detail. I love the style of the Ratchet ambulance. Honestly, it's so
totally.
Good. Yeah,
it's very animated, isn't it? Again, it's that.
Yeah.
Very much like an IDW, the early IDW Ratchet.
Yeah.
It looks like
actually.
Yeah, it looks like an extended camper van top. You know, that's going on there. You know,
but I don't think we've ever seen the drone from the combat deck doing so much. Like, it's in another scene, you see in the background doing something like, oh, look at it. Yeah. Finally.
Yeah. I actually love that. I just the fact that Ratchet is controlling that as well.
Yeah.
And when I read it, I was just like, well, I wonder how Prime feels. You know, because you know he's connected to that, and he's like, you know, that must be a bit weird for him, It's like Autobots are getting repaired in his trailer.
A little bit weird, I would imagine.
The MP10 trailer as well, because it's got the the flaps at the front next to the ramp.
It does,
either side of it.
Yeah.
And that's the doors, isn't it, from the MP10 trailer? That's what they do. They fold down to...
That's so true, yeah. It was funny. It was hilarious because we literally recorded this mini-sode, on Prime's trailer, and then we were just talking about it, and then it was just the next morning that the preview came out, wasn't it? It was...
They posted it in the chat. I can't believe it. I was like, oh my God, after we just literally had this conversation.
Yeah, just weird timing.
Great minds.
Right, well, I think that's probably going to do it for Skybound. Well, I was going to say Skybound Transformers issue 1 and 2, plus Void Rivals a bit, and then some G.I. Joe chat as well. But the first chapter. So what we will now do is spin off, as we said, into our Patreon miniseries, which honestly is going to be great. So you can expect more of this. Every chapter we'll be talking about in the next couple of issues that have come out, things like that, and kind of keep it regular, up to date regularly. But there are more miniseries besides as well. So we've also got an ongoing miniseries on IDW's More Than Meets the Eye for a bit more comic chat, if you fancy that sort of thing. And I think it's going to be really interesting, actually, talking about the two concurrently, sort of the new comic versus the old one, the differences between them. I think it's going to be quite fascinating to kind of examine those together. But there's a lot of toy chat in there as well. We've still got the ongoing adventures of Tatman Forever, as you said earlier.
Tatman Returns.
What's you obviously not going to say what's next on the docket for Tatman, but I'm sure it's something suitably Tat-worthy.
Voltron.
Oh yes, I knew what it was the second we finished the last one.
Oh,
I've just been prepping.
Interesting.
Don't think you can tap that sushi wrapped Mortal Kombat Scorpion. Honestly, that's
that was a peak. That's the one that drove Maz away. I think it was that episode.
No coincidence.
Wait a minute. Oh, no.
Exactly. He was done at that point. That finished him off. But we will have another mini series on the way as well. Something a little Jason flavored, isn't that?
Indeed. Yes. More news on that soon.
Yeah, can't wait.
Can we do a spin-off so we can call it like Jason Adjacent?
Jason of Jason?
Jason
Adjacent.
Oh, Jason. Oh, do you know, that used to happen to me all the time in maths, and the teacher would talk about adjacent, and I'd be like, what? And because I'll be honest, I didn't really pay much attention in maths class, but that would be the bit where I'd wake up like, what have I done? Oh, sorry. Okay.
I mean, we finally get to do the Jason and the Wheeled Warriors.
Yes, that's the other thing as well. That's it.
Well, we could just rename the podcast that if you want.
Triple Jace over.
We're not there yet. Triple Jace over.
Anyway,
too far.
We'll workshop that. We'll keep that one going.
No one's ready for that yet.
Yeah,
honestly.
exactly. But if you do like what you've heard here tonight, as I say, do get on our Patreon. There's loads more content there at Goldbox Classics level, which is the top one with all the mini-series, or just Sixo's Butler for the fortnightly mini-sodes as well, and you can commission your own mini-sodes. Or in a Beast, you get on our Discord and get all of that kind of good stuff. Or Man in Pig or Apologetic Ramp as well. They're both pretty good levels. Whatever, really. We're just grateful for the support. That's what I would say. And there is another perk as well, which is the regular Patreon shout-out.
Don't know how I feel about this, guys.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. This was always Maz's thing, wasn't it? So it was a regular Maz staple that Maz would do the Maz Patreon shout-out. We debated how we were going to do this moving forward. Would we keep it the same? Would someone else pick it up? And we decided...
Can we use AI?
Right, exactly.
Well, that was it.
Yeah.
So, we were thinking
Chat
about
Maz.
that. Your Chat Maz, exactly. Not Chat GPT, but Chat Maz. That's
Chat
what
Maz.
we're doing from now on.
I think so.
Developing it behind the scenes.
We own his image, don't we? I think.
Well, we've got a lot of audio,
Yeah.
So that's all we need. Just feed that in.
Yeah. Well, we would never stoop to such lengths. Of course we wouldn't. Bit nefarious, bit creepy. But we have actually brought Maz back for this one episode. So
hey, Maz.
He's here. He's right here. Here he is. Hello, mate. How you doing? Yeah. So
Hope
he's
you choke.
Yeah, that's very good.
Him.
So
100% him.
he's going to do the shout out, and let's do that now. Go on, Maz.
So a big shout out to Nick, Danny Roberts, Andy Preston, Chris Spiderfather, Adam Schumacher, Matt Batsa, Justin Massara, David Arnold, Sir Geocast, Yusuf, John Pearl, Choice, Vandy Cast, Captain Ray, Phil G, Rotstorm, Laserbeak, Peter the Hunter, Peter Hampson, Shenry, Chris Norris, Jesse Marino, Nexus, Aaron Roberto, Billy Gator, Andy Gold, Cole Score, Simon Elwin, Joshua Crack, Tassie Plastic, Davin Steady, Jeffrey Freak, Inbound Lee, Kyle Wilmot, Tim Banerjee, Ben Lewis, Lucas Henkel, Monster Koenig, Malcolm Hobbs, CNC, Rick 56, Mythic Gears, Zach Lawson, Jason Murray, David Shepard, Esteem, Quick Mix, Josh Bell, Ash Polt, Zindios, Christian Hyatt, Mark Ellie, Graham Moffat, Connor C, Buck Broder, Eric Hoyt, Bobby P, Mike Loicona, Neil Bat, Chris Wadwell, Steve Redmond, Jim Kinsey, Sean T. Siegel, James Pascal, Ghost Prime, Jekyll, Holdert Walter, Charlie Chappelle, June Marigold, Jonathan Foslogic Howard, Alexis Taylor, Windows 6K, Tyler Dickinson, Jeremy Woodall, Ross, Jetfire, James Dogline, UK, Michael Kegel, Douglas Sean, Squid Catfish, Robert R. Kellesis, Cam Lee, Miguel Gonzalez, Spider Bob, James Hook, Brandon Mahaffey, Collecticon, Chuck Goldbolt, Riley Lenz, Emperor Galvatron, Matthew Dedman, Spencer Butler, Alan Johnson, Anthony Baker, Adam Brady, James Turnham, Simon the Transform Closet, EMH, Richard, Robin Hunt, RHA, Logan, Jetfire Prime, James Clark, Frank Simo, Atlas, Dave Beckett, Jeremy Canseco, Ben Erickson, Evil Plot Disease, Juan Carpentero, Clark Clint Gaming, Michael Gaxiel, is he still laughing at that? Freedom is the Right, DJ Convoy, John Cole Dalton, Star Saber Fan 37, Private Random, Rob Franklin, Protein, Digbysaurus, Anthony Fortunato, Menestrika, Dodge, Stevie P, 360 Verse, Traffic Cone, The Perfect Pixel, Saucy Fellow, Mark Bairstow, John R, and the Makes Brothers who might recognise. What a list.
What a list.
What a list indeed.
That was incredible.
What an amazing list. So good.
It's like
so
he's never been
Thanks,
away.
Maz.
It really is. Thanks, Maz. That was really good of you to
Here's the
come
door.
back for that.
Cheers, man.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. Thank you, Maz, for doing that. We really, really, really appreciate it. Oh, he's gone already. Where did he go?
Love you. Oh.
Come back soon.
Yeah.
It feels like a Titanic moment, you know, where it's just like floating away.
No. Get on the raft.
Pan pipes.
He forgot to mention one of our patrons as well, because we've got a new patron called Raphael Roth, who's just joined as well. I don't know why I didn't mention him, but we'll throw
Raphael.
that now. Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for joining.
Exactly. Sorry, Maz didn't mention you.
That's why we sacked Maz. Half a job.
Yeah.
Half a job.
One job.
Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, no, us sacking Maz aside, that's all in the past now. But we do also have there we go. You can get your regular shout outs. We also have a sponsor for the evening as well. That is tfsource.com. So do check them out for all your Transformers and third-party needs.
And we do have a Rebel, but I'm so thrilled by Maz's return and stunned
Right.
that I will just give you the address, which is rebel.com/people/triple takeover/explore.
Explore.
Nailed it. Yeah.
Perfect.
No
Yes.
post-it note needed. Fantastic.
No, and if you're enjoying the Skybound miniseries, or if you're not, and you want to talk to someone about it, why not hit us up on social media? You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Triple Takeover, all one word. No, at Triple_Takeover, and at Triple Takeover, all one word on Facebook. Sixo, where can they find you?
I'm at SixoTF on pretty much every social media platform you can think of.
Jason.
I'm jasonwagner.co.uk.
Oh yeah, I forgot you got your website.
Yes,
It made me laugh when I was
URL.
editing the
know,
episode.
I
and
love
that bit
this. This
popped
is
up.
going to be, I was going to change it, but I'm keeping it now because
A website.
it's like old school.
Yeah.
You know. Tonight's been the 80s. Let's go back to the 80s, guys.
I like that idea. You can find my contact details on a stone tablet in the town square.
Yeah,
You can find it on a Dreamweaver on AOL online.
MySpace. He's on
that's my-
MySpace.
Yeah, it is on MySpace.
So I'll be honest.
Still got a Bebo.
I want to make it look like a 90s website. That's what my plan is
Oh,
now. You know,
brilliant.
GIFs, all this kind of stuff. You know,
Timeless
that'd be
quality
amazing.
to it.
When you sign papers, but do you ever sometimes accidentally put .co.uk after your name?
Yeah, just that's my signature. There you go.
Yeah.
Change it by Depol, the name itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Liam, where can we find you?
Well, I'm at Toybox anywhere there's an at.
So yeah, do hit us up if you've been enjoying the episode so far. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Skybound and everything they're doing. Please do come and join us for the rest of the miniseries as well. You get this one for free. The rest you will have to sign up for, but I think it'll be worth it. So
Absolutely.
yeah, we're really hopeful that you'll join us for that journey. But either way, we'll be back for more Triple Takeover very soon.
Sleep well, sweet prince.